Chapter 2280. I can move by myself. Angie stood up. She was too embarrassed to continue lying on the dark lava and let Qin Zhao carry her. Bo Untu, Fi, and Orlando were the same. Although they were still very weak, they could still move. Moreover, Chen Zhao had been injured not long ago. How could they let an injured person carry them forward? Qin Zhao didn't insist that they continue to rest. Although they were in the same team, they should support each other. It didn't mean that Qin Zhao was willing to let them lie on the ground while he fought and killed. Not long after entering the cave, everyone felt a wave of coldness in front of them. The bone-chilling coldness made everyone shiver uncontrollably. "This coldness isn't normal," Matthew said. "What do you think?" "I'm fine," Qin Zhao said. Delia, on the other hand, used her own magical power to protect her body, preventing the cold from attacking her. As for Angie, Bo Untu, Fi, and Orlando, their bodies weren't in good condition. Moreover, they could only use very little magic, so they basically couldn't resist the cold. The four were already shivering from the cold, but they still gritted their teeth and persevered. Matthew looked at his four teammates in this state and cast a spell on them to help them dispel the cold air on their bodies. "This coldness seems to be attacking my soul," Matthew said. Even Qin Zhao could feel that this coldness wasn't normal. The activity of his cells also decreased in this coldness. Of course, either Qin Zhao nor Matthew could pose a real threat with the cold air alone. However, the source of the coldness was probably the holy sword they were about to face. The holy sword at the back was definitely an ice-type holy sword. After walking for a few more minutes, they still hadn't seen the third holy sword. Instead, they saw a world of ice. They also saw the collection of the holy sword. In this world made of solid ice, there were countless ice sculptures as well. Every ice sculpture here was vivid and lifelike, as if they had a life of their own. Of course, they'd been frozen when they were alive. That was why they looked so lifelike. There were humans, mutants, magical beasts, and scarlet polluters among the ice sculptures. All of them had despair and panic on their faces. The postures and movements of these creatures were surprisingly uniform. All of them were running away. Some were trying their best to escape in the direction they came from. Some of them looked back as they ran. At this time, a wave of ice suddenly surged in front of them. The white mist with extreme chill spread out crazily. Everyone was caught off guard by this wave of ice. "Let's go! Let's go!" Matthew exclaimed. But this wave of ice came too suddenly, too fast. It was so fast that no one had time to prepare. Everyone was running for their lives. But the wave of ice had already caught up to everyone. In an instant, it covered everyone's bodies. Oh no! Matthew tried to use magic to protect himself. But he found that his magic was completely ineffective. Under this extreme chill, it was as if all magic had been frozen. Qin Zhao also realized that he couldn't do anything. Soon, his body was completely frozen by the chill. What a frightening chill! However, even though the cold air had frozen Chen Zhao could not move at all. But Qin Zhao's body was almost unharmed. Qin Zhao's muscles tightened. The ice on his body started to crack and then shards of ice fell off. Soon, Qin Zhao was freed from the ice. Whoosh! Qin Zhao turned his head and looked at the people behind him. Everyone, including Matthew, was frozen in ice. But they weren't dead. At least not for now. But in their current state, it wouldn't be long before their souls returned to the horizon. Just like the other ice sculptures. The probability of a frozen person coming back to life was too low in movies and TV shows. In real life, it was almost impossible to come back to life after being frozen. The low temperature would kill cells and destroy body functions. It could even destroy the physical structure of the human body. Qin Zhao was about to save them when a murderous aura attacked him from behind. Qin Zhao turned around and punched. It was a solid punch. But when Qin Zhao looked closely, he realized that it was a ground full of shattered ice. Qin Zhao wiped off the ice shards on his fist, a confused expression on his face. Was it an ice sculpture that attacked him? Just as Qin Zhao was wondering, there was another clear murderous aura behind him. This time, Qin Zhao didn't choose to fight back. Instead, he jumped to the side and dodged the attack. A huge ice axe smashed into the ground. Qin Zhao was attacked by another ice sculpture. An ice sculpture of a humanoid creature was chasing after Qin Zhao with a pair of huge ice axes. Qin Zhao kept dodging and retreating. The ice sculpture posed no threat to Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao didn't choose to destroy it immediately. He wanted to be sure that the series of attacks were the sculpture's own actions, or that it was being controlled. Soon, Qin Zhao realized that the ice sculpture had indeed been notified by someone. The sculpture didn't have any aura of a living being. It also didn't have a soul. So, it couldn't have its own consciousness. So, it was just a puppet that was being controlled to attack Qin Zhao. Just as Qin Zhao was dodging unhurriedly, another ice sculpture attacked him. The two ice sculptures waved their weapons recklessly and attacked Qin Zhao crazily. There was no difficulty in destroying these two ice sculptures. But Qin Zhao still couldn't find who was controlling them. Where was it hiding? Qin Zhao suddenly stopped. He raised his arms and threw two punches at the two ice sculptures that were coming at him. The two ice sculptures crumbled instantly. Two beams of blue light shot out from the remains of the two ice sculptures. The blue light was very faint, and the aura was also very weak. The two beams of blue light merged into one and entered one of the ice sculptures at the same time. Soon, the ice sculpture moved again. Qin Zhao took a deep breath. Then, he threw countless punches in all directions. The blue light seemed to be attached to the ice sculptures and controlled their movements. So it's this thing, Qin Zhao murmured. At the same time, he punched out countless punches. The punches spread in all directions. Countless ice sculptures were shattered by Qin Zhao. The ice sculpture attached to the blue light was also shattered. Just then, a lot of blue light escaped from the ice shards. At the same time, they fused together and turned into a crystal-clear sword. The sword looked as if it was made of ice crystals. It seemed to be one of the holy swords. Qin Zhao increased his output and killed all the ice sculptures. Chapter 2281. There were many ice sculptures in the area. However, they couldn't withstand Qin Zhao's large-scale attack. Ice shards flew everywhere and mist filled the entire area. It covered Qin Zhao's vision. Because his senses were restricted, he couldn't know what was going on around him. There were also the ice sculptures of Matthew and the others behind him. Matthew and the others were in danger, but they weren't dead yet. So, Qin Zhao had to stay beside them and protect them. As for the thing that could control the ice sculptures, it lost all the ice sculptures and also lost its target. However, its true form should be one of the holy swords. Suddenly, an ice sword shot out of the mist. The ice sword's angle of attack was tricky, but it didn't leave Qin Zhao's line of sight. So, Qin Zhao didn't find it hard to deal with. He casually punched. But to Qin Zhao's surprise, the ice sword wasn't solid. Instead, it dissipated into mist. The next moment, another ice sword shot out of the mist. This time, Qin Zhao couldn't detect the attack in advance. But the ice sword couldn't break through his defense either. But the ice sword turned into mist again and dissipated. Qin Zhao frowned. The ice sword wasn't powerful. But it was rather troublesome. It seemed that he was wrong. Qin Zhao had thought that the holy swords needed the ice sculptures as carriers to attack. But in reality, the holy swords didn't need ice sculptures. Even the ice shards that Qin Zhao had shattered could still be used as carriers by the holy swords. It was just that the method of attack had changed. The ice swords formed from cold air weren't the holy swords' true form. Even if Qin Zhao shattered them 1,000 or 10,000 times, they could reform and attack Qin Zhao again. Qin Zhao ignored the ice sword's attack. Instead, he sank into deep thought. After a few attacks, the ice sword's power had greatly increased. But to Qin Zhao, there wasn't any substantial difference. Hitting someone with a cotton stick and hitting someone with a sponge felt the same to a normal person. But this endless feeling wasn't pleasant. especially since Chen Zhao's temper wasn't good. Normal methods of attack were obviously meaningless. Then, he'd use another method. Chen Zhao wrapped Matthew and the others in dark lava. At the same time, he raised his right arm and opened the Eye of the Thunder. In the Eye of the Thunder, Chen Zhao had accumulated an enormous amount of lightning power. Even though Chen Zhao would occasionally use lightning to attack, Chen Zhao didn't care. However, compared to the energy stored in the Eye of the Thunder, it was nothing. Chen Zhao had only used 1/10,000th of the total amount. Chen Zhao's right arm was already flashing with electricity. In an instant, Chen Zhao released all the lightning he had stored. Bang! Tens of thousands of electric arcs shattered the air and spread in all directions without any pattern. Especially when it hit the ice mist, it already had an extremely high level of moisture poison. After the electric arc entered the ice fog, it turned from an electric arc into a net. The densely packed electrical net directly evaporated the moisture in the air. When the electric arc completely evaporated all the ice mist, the air became fresh. A sparkling and translucent ice sword fell to the ground. This time, it was not made of ice mist, but solid. Chen Zhao picked up the ice sword, although he did not know the name of the sword. However, the crystal-like appearance was quite attractive. Moreover, this sword wasn't directly destroyed like the silver daybreak and green cloud. The crystal sword was still intact. So, after flipping it around a few times, Chen Zhao put the crystal sword into his personal space. Putting away the dark lava, Chen Zhao looked at the frozen Matthew and the others. Chen Zhao placed his palm on Matthew's frozen body. With a light push, a crack immediately appeared on the ice on Matthew's body. The next moment, the ice suddenly exploded. Then Matthew broke free. "Chen, what's going on? You look really messed up." Chen Zhao wasn't injured again. It was just that when Matthew broke free, the ice shards had damaged his clothes a lot. That was why Chen Zhao looked so messed up. "It's nothing. They're also frozen. You can do whatever you want. Where's the holy sword? Did you fight the third holy sword again? No wonder your clothes are torn." Matthew looked at everyone's ice sculptures and shouted, "Sunlight!" This was the most suitable spell for the current situation that Matthew could think of. Although the power of sunlight was very weak, and it did not have the effect of healing or purifying. However, it could melt the ice on the others. Not long after, everyone was also rescued from the ice. But they all felt different degrees of weakness. This made the team, which was already weak, even more tired. "Shen, I think we should retreat first and think about it." To him, Chen Zhao was already at the end of his rope. After all, Chen Zhao had destroyed the 3 holy swords all by himself. Plus, Chen Zhao was injured. After this battle, Chen Zhao was injured once. With his current condition, he definitely couldn't continue. "Okay." Chen Zhao nodded. Everyone understood the need to retreat. Only Delia wasn't happy at all. Along the way, Delia had been asking for help. She kept encouraging them to continue. But at this moment, everyone was exhausted. Even though they'd only dealt with 3 out of the 548 holy swords. It had already made the team, which was already full of injuries, even more difficult to move forward. Plus, there were more holy swords waiting for them after this. She hoped that Chen Zhao and the others could take her away. But right now, she had no choice. When they'd come, they'd been careful with each step. But when they left, they didn't have to worry so much. Soon they were out of the cave. Everyone was a bit addicted to the air outside, which was covered in magma. The air in the tunnel was fresher and purer than outside. But unknown dangers were hidden in the fresh air. Everyone would rather move around in the outside world than continue to enter the cave, which was dangerous for them. But Matthew wasn't happy at all. After all, they'd already suffered heavy losses from just facing 3 holy swords. Plus, there were more holy swords later. Matthew didn't think that their team could face the 548 holy swords. "Chen, how's your injury?" "It's alright," Chen Zhao said calmly. He didn't have time to care about the others. Because the mysterious attack appeared again and headed straight for Chen Zhao. Boom! This attack was more powerful than any of the previous ones. Chapter 2282. Qin Zhao was sent flying, right in front of Matthew. Before Matthew could react, he felt an enormous force pierce through his eyes. Qin Zhao was sent flying into the mountain wall. The entire wall was covered in spiderweb-like cracks. Chun! Matthew hurriedly rushed over and lifted the stone. He saw Qin Zhao lying on the ground. Qin Zhao shook his head and pushed the stone away. Then, he sat on the ground and panted. Matthew felt that Qin Zhao's aura was extremely small. He thought that Qin Zhao was heavily injured. Chen, what exactly is attacking you? I don't know. I don't understand at all. Ever since I was transported here, I've been being attacked by unknown things. You don't even know who attacked you? I don't know. Qin Zhao shook his head. Every attack seemed to appear out of thin air. Qin Zhao's face was blank. He didn't even know who it was. This made him wonder if it was a human attacking him. Matthew didn't think too much. He just thought that there was an enemy nearby. Qin Zhao most likely couldn't fight anymore. There was still an expert hiding nearby. This made Matthew even more worried. They could hide in the surroundings without a sound. Once it was disadvantageous to them. Especially when Qin Zhao was attacked like this. As long as it was aimed at them, they would probably die on the spot. Matthew didn't think that he or his teammates had the ability to take such an attack head-on. Even an enhancer like Qin Zhao was weakened to this extent after being attacked like this, let alone people like them. I don't need you to help me. Qin Zhao pushed away Matthew's hand. I'm not that weak yet. Qin Zhao wasn't weak now. He was just suppressing his power to the extreme. However, even if he suppressed his strength to the extreme, his physical body was still at a monstrous level. However, to Matthew, Qin Zhao was just being stubborn. He was already extremely weak, but he still wanted to save face and suffer. Qin Zhao took a deep breath. He didn't know who had attacked him. But after he left the cave, this inexplicable hostility appeared again. This made Qin Zhao more and more suspicious. It wasn't someone who was targeting him. It was the world here. More accurately, it was the seal here. Perhaps he was treated as a target by the seal here. Thinking about it this way, it made sense. Since it was sealed here, and under such a grand formation, it was impossible for it to escape. There was no need to doubt his strength. Therefore, Qin Zhao felt that the seal might have misjudged him and thought that he was the thing that was sealed. This was also very likely. After all, as long as Qin Zhao exceeded that limit, the attack would come. This might be the threshold set by the seal itself. Matthew's heart was heavy now. Apart from him, the rest of the team seemed to have no more combat power left. Delia wasn't injured, but from her previous performance, she didn't know how to fight very well, so her combat strength wasn't very high. We need some food. At this time, everyone was very tired, and the most effective way to relieve their fatigue was to eat and sleep. And in this kind of environment, if they were to sleep, they might never wake up again. Can you find food here? Qin Zhao asked Matthew. As long as it's not a human or humanoid, it's edible, Matthew said calmly. I found that some of the skeletons here are clearly different from humans. Matthew was from the church, but that didn't mean he was a saint. When needed, he could use all the conditions he could to keep himself and his teammates alive. Eating magical beasts or mutants wasn't something he couldn't accept. He'd eaten them in the past, and he'd eaten quite a lot. Then go. Be careful, Qin Zhao said calmly. It's just that. Matthew looked at Delia, then at his teammates. I'm here. No one can do anything bad under my watch. Qin Zhao knew what Matthew was worried about. Just like how Qin Zhao didn't trust Delia, Matthew didn't trust her either. To Matthew, Qin Zhao was a stranger too. But Qin Zhao gave Matthew a completely different feeling. There were too many suspicious points about Delia's actions. This was why Matthew didn't feel safe letting Delia watch over his teammates. If it was the previous Qin Zhao, it wouldn't be a problem. But Matthew was worried about Qin Zhao's physical condition, and how much combat power he had left. If Delia did something wrong, would Chen Zhao be able to stop her? Don't worry. I'll watch her. She can't do anything. Matthew was still hesitant. Everyone needs to eat now. Okay, I'll leave this place to you, Matthew said. Matthew didn't leave immediately. Instead, he walked toward Delia. Delia, I'm going to find food. Wait for me here. I won't be gone for long. All right. Don't worry and go. Delia nodded. She could tell what Matthew meant. He wasn't saying that he wouldn't be gone for long to make her feel at ease. He was warning her that if she did anything wrong, Matthew wouldn't let her go. Matthew looked at Chen Zhao and nodded slightly. Then he turned and left. After watching Matthew leave, Delia glanced at the 4 weak people and walked toward Chen Zhao with a smile. Hey Chen, you don't look too good. Even Delia could feel Chen Zhao's weakness. Different from his previous thick aura, Chen Zhao's aura was so tiny that it was almost negligible. Chen Zhao looked up at Delia. Do you think I'm so weak that even you can't beat me? Oh, do you still have power? How much do you have left? Delia's tone was somewhat provocative. Chen Zhao only glanced at Delia indifferently, and continued sitting on the ground. I'm talking to you, Delia suddenly shouted. Put away your pride. You have no pride in front of me right now. What, you're not going to hide it anymore? Chen Zhao's tone was still so casual. Delia's lips curled up. I never expected to keep lying. Plus, haven't you guys been suspicious of me for a long time? Indeed. Chen Zhao nodded. But since you know that we're suspicious of you, do you think Matthew really left? Delia's expression changed drastically. She suddenly looked in the direction that Matthew had left. Ha! Looks like you're not as confident as you appear. Delia's expression darkened. Are you messing with me? Do you think you're not dying fast enough? Chapter 2283. Chen Zhao only lifted his eyelids slightly and looked at Delia, who was smoking. And this kind of condescending attitude made Delia even more furious. This anger even made her reason start burning. Red smoke kept coming out of her head. Red gas. As the owner of red magic, she should be able to control the red gas for her own use. But now, she seemed to be controlled by the gas instead. Looks like you're not in a good state either. Chen Zhao's lips curled into a smile. How do you know I'm not in a good state? Do you really think it's because I'm not in a good state? Not because I'm in a very good state. The scarlet aura didn't just change Delia's tone of voice, it also changed the tone of her voice. It was as if there was something hidden in her voice. Do you think I'm being controlled by something? Ha! And Delia chuckled softly. Oh. From your tone, it seems like you have a new explanation for your current state. No one controls the other. Everything I do is voluntary. It and I are just using each other. It understands my intentions, and I understand its thoughts. I know what I can get, and I know what I need to pay. Chen Zhao shrugged. Looks like you're a smart person. Chen Zhao had seen many fallen people. Most of them had fallen with pitiful hopes. Even when they fell into darkness, they still had a sliver of hope. They felt that they didn't need to pay any price, or that they only needed to pay an extremely small price to obtain what others gave them. Delia seemed ignorant and naive, but she actually knew better than anyone else. That was why Chen Zhao said she was a smart person. The one who made the deal with you is that red demon, right? Isn't it obvious? Delia didn't deny it. He wants you to release him? Ha ha. Delia let out a mocking laugh. I'm not that naive, and he's not that naive either. He wouldn't ask me to destroy the seal, because he knows that it's impossible for me to do so. Chen Zhao stood up with his arms propped up. Clapping his hands, he said, Then what's the deal? What? You want to deal with him too? Delia felt that Chen Zhao was interested in the power and path she had obtained. I'm just curious. Don't even think about it. You'll never get it. Delia did not believe him. Only someone like me, who practices scarlet magic, has the right to trade with him. Oh? Why not? I'm stronger than you, so I think he'll be more than happy to make a deal with me. You want to get information out of my mouth? Or are you trying to buy time? You've said so much. Don't you want to say more? After I break your arms and legs, I will seriously tell you the contents of the deal. Bang! Suddenly, Chen Zhao attacked without any warning. He grabbed Delia's neck and pressed her to the ground. You, tell me what your deal is about, Chen Zhao said calmly. Delia was shocked. She wanted to struggle, but Chen Zhao wasn't as weak as she thought. No matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't shake off that unbreakable power. But this guy's aura was clearly weaker than a normal person's. How could he still be so strong? Logically speaking, he shouldn't even be able to move a finger. Just then, Angie, Bo Untu, Fee, and Orlando all stood up when they saw the conflict. What? You want to stop me? No, before Matthew left, he said that whatever you do is right, Angie said coldly. We won't cause trouble for you. That's good. Chen Zhao nodded and looked back at Delia. Tell me about the teachings of you and the Red Demon. Delia stared at Chen Zhao hatefully, but she still relented in the end. She was stubborn, but she wasn't an idiot. And she wasn't facing an idiot either. I damaged a part of the seal. Then, he released the red gas from the crack in the seal for me to absorb, Delia said. Red magic seems to be very harmful to the spiritual world and normal society, but in reality, it can't reach the level that people think it is, because all red magic relies on absorbing red gas as a foundation. You people are born with great talent and a powerful background. You don't understand how a marginal witch like me, who carries a sinful inheritance, struggles in the spiritual world. I'm weak and insignificant. I need to use all my strength to deal with a mere evil spirit, let alone become a top spiritualist. The more Delia spoke, the more indignant she became. Her eyes were filled with fury. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt Delia's aura increase dozens of times. Boom! Chen Zhao was sent flying. Delia was already covered by the red aura. When I was sent here, all the bad luck seemed to have turned into good luck. The accumulation of the past 20 years finally produced good wine. Delia's aura was still increasing. This is the red battlefield, the birthplace of red magic. There's also what I need the most here. The red gas that's long been extinct in the outside world permeates the air here. I can absorb it without any worries. Every minute I stay here, my power increases a little. In just 2 days, my power has increased to an unimaginable level. And here, I've even come into contact with the source of everything, the red demon. The red gas I absorb is just released unconsciously. There's even purer red gas in his body. That's the power I've been dreaming of. Delia had already arrived before Chen Zhao, who was lying on the shattered ground. What I need to do is destroy the seal. 548 legends, Delia said calmly. Although I can't destroy it completely, with your stupidity, the 3 holy swords were still destroyed. Because of this, there's a gap in the 548 legends. The Red Demon also fulfilled his promise. He's transferring more power to me. He promised that as long as I can bear it, he'll satisfy me. Do you feel despair now? No, you're not strong enough, Chen Zhao said calmly. You're not strong enough to make me feel despair. Chapter 2284. This time, Delia wasn't angry. Instead, she laughed. Then what about now? Delia's aura skyrocketed again. It was an exponential increase. Her aura had already increased by more than 10 times. Now, it doubled again. This made her aura even more terrifying and the red aura even more intense. She was like a demon covered in red steam. She howled in the red steam. The 3 holy swords you destroyed weren't enough to shake the entire seal, but it was just enough for the red demon's power to pass to me through the crack. Are you sure it's your power? Chen Zhao sneered at Delia. Ha! Are you trying to tell me that this external power can't be trusted? Delia lowered her head and looked at him. And then you're telling me to give up on this power? For others, the scarlet gas is a deadly and strange poison. However, for me, who has mastered the scarlet magic. It is an unprecedented energy replenishment. I can absolutely use and control this power. I will also become unprecedentedly powerful. Even Zhang Tianyi, even the 23rd generation Blood Mary, they will have to surrender to me. Chen Zhao looked at Delia. As the saying went, the ignorant were fearless. This sentence was most suitable for Delia. She didn't understand what level Zhang Tianyi and the 23rd Blood Mary were at. She also didn't understand how big the gap between them was. That was why she dared to say such arrogant words. Chen Zhao looked at Delia. You know nothing about power. You know nothing about power, Delia said in disdain. At the same time, she lifted her foot and prepared to step on his chest. But the next moment, a golden barrier blocked Delia's foot. But cracks also appeared on the golden barrier. It seemed like it would shatter at any moment. It was Angie who'd attacked. She spread her wings again. This time, her wings were pure white and flawless. There wasn't any red color at all. Delia turned to look at Angie, Bo-Untu, Fee, and Orlando. Looks like you've all recovered a lot of magic, but are you sure you can beat my mom now? You can try, evil witch. Angie didn't hide her disgust for India. You still don't understand what true evil looks like. Delia let out a cold snort. Angie didn't want to say anything more. A dazzling light flashed in her hand, and then a long sword made of holy light condensed in her palm. The wings on Angie's back flapped, and she charged straight towards Delia. A hint of mockery was on Delia's face. It wasn't like she didn't know how to use offensive spells. However, the number of offensive spells she could use in the past was pitifully small, and their power was relatively mediocre. And as her power continued to grow, the number of spells she could choose from also increased. For example, even if an ant had enough ammunition to equip an army, the ant would not have enough strength to use it. But if this ant had the strength of a human, then it could choose many, many weapons. The same was true for Delia. In the past, her weakness and lowliness were just a form of disguise and self-protection. Humans were like this. The more they lacked something, the less they desired it. Delia felt that she didn't need to disguise anymore. The surging power in her body gave her the illusion that she was looking down on the world. She seemed to understand a lot of knowledge that she couldn't understand in the past. She waved her hand casually, and dozens of red arrows appeared around her. She pointed at Angie in the air. The dozens of red arrows shot at Angie. Angie blocked with her sword, but she seemed to be in a difficult position. Watch out! Seeing that Angie couldn't handle it, Orlando decisively helped her block a few arrows. Seeing Angie and Orlando in a difficult position, Delia's lips curled up slightly. In the past, spiritualists like Angie and Orlando were existences that Delia had to look up to. Now they were in a difficult position after a random attack from her. This made her feel unprecedentedly satisfied. She couldn't stop her powerful strength. Just then, Bo-Untu and Fee stood up too. Let's go together. This was definitely not the time to show their chivalry. They weren't in a good state right now. They'd only recovered 10 to 20% of their magic power. They were also very tired. If not to save Qinzhao, they wouldn't even want to fight. In addition, Delia had displayed an unusual sense of power and pressure. If they still wanted to fight one-on-one now, they might be wiped out by Delia here. Delia's strength had come suddenly, but she wasn't unfamiliar with it at all. She waved her hand lightly, and the red gas turned into a giant. The attacks of Angie and the others landed on the red giant, dispersing into nothingness directly. Use a little more strength. Is this all you've got? Delia unscrupulously displayed her strength. The more powerless Angie and the others were, the more satisfied she was. The red giant casually punched the ground. A terrifying shockwave swept through the surroundings. Angie and the others were sent flying by the impact. Too weak. You're really too weak. You disappoint me. I thought I could have a good fight. Delia didn't notice that there was a black shadow under her feet. Qinzhao's dark lava silently spread to Delia's feet. However, Qinzhao didn't attack immediately. Instead, he quietly absorbed the red gas. I can absorb it? Qin Zhao realized that the red gas could be absorbed. Just like the other evil existences Qin Zhao had devoured in the past, the dark lava could devour them directly. Suddenly, India's laughter came to an abrupt halt. Was it an illusion? Confusion appeared on Delia's face. It was as if her power had dropped a little. But soon, the red demon's power surged over again. Delia immediately tossed the illusion to the back of her mind. But Delia's pleasure didn't last for too long. The feeling of falling back came again. The weakness came too suddenly. Delia didn't understand what was wrong with her at all. She didn't lack great power now. But she didn't have much battle experience. So, she didn't know the dark lava under her feet at all. But soon, an even stronger feeling of weakness came. Delia finally realized that her scarlet aura was diminishing. Immediately, Delia looked down and found that she was standing on a patch of dark magma. She'd seen Qin Zhao use this move before, so she immediately understood. Chapter 2285. How dare you steal my power? I want you dead! Delia was instantly enraged. This power belonged to her. She wouldn't allow anyone to touch it. But Qin Zhao had actually stolen her power. This made her completely explode. It was different from when she faced Angie, Bo Untu, Fi, and Alterando. Against the four of them, Delia treated them like a game. It was a suppression of power. She could toy with them as she pleased. But Qin Zhao had stolen what belonged to her. This was what she cared about the most. All the scarlet gas turned back into a terrifying scarlet giant. It was even bigger and scarier than before. The scarlet energy in the surroundings was also rising. But in the next moment, the dark magma turned into a curtain that enveloped the scarlet giant. The scarlet giant rammed against the curtain. Delia's expression froze. She realized that her connection with the red giant had been cut off. The red giant had already used up most of her power. Now that the red giant had been devoured, she was even more furious. Give it back! The red gas around Delia turned into a huge red sword and slashed at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao only glanced at Delia casually. He didn't dodge. He just let the red sword slash his body. His body, which should have been cut open, stood there unharmed except for the cracked ground. Instead, the red sword fell apart, turning into red crystals that filled the sky. Delia was shocked. Angie, Bo Untu, Fi, and Alterando all had the same expression. Was this still the weak Qin Zhao? Shouldn't Qin Zhao be defeated by Delia? Qin Zhao's aura was still small and insignificant. But now, no one would believe that Qin Zhao was weak. That's it, Qin Zhao said casually. If that's the case, I'm afraid you won't even have the chance to face Zhang Tianyi and 23rd Blood Mary. Defeat them? Ha! Are you kidding me? Delia was shocked and furious. Qin Zhao's clearly weak but terrifying power made her hair stand on end. You thief! You stole my power! Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to defeat me. Delia suddenly realized that it was definitely because Qin Zhao had stolen her power. Otherwise, how could the weak Qin Zhao defeat him? There was no reason for Qin Zhao to win. Qin Zhao shrugged, not planning to defend himself. I will use even greater power to defeat you. The scarlet aura in Delia's body began to fill up again. Qin Zhao didn't take the chance to attack Delia. The red aura in Delia's body was still very small to Qin Zhao, even insignificant. But to Qin Zhao, it was like a supplement. It was better than nothing. This scarlet gas contained strong negative emotions, and it was very easy to incite people's anger. However, these negative emotions were nothing compared to the King of Wrath's bloodline. Qin Zhao also considered that it was probably because of his King of Wrath bloodline that he wasn't affected by the red gas. In some sense, the red gas was very similar to Qin Zhao's dark lava. It was just that one existed in liquid form. The other one existed in a gaseous state. As for the difference in color, it wasn't really a difference. For example, Qin Zhao's dark lava should have been called dark serum, but after it merged with the lava, it became black with a hint of red. Later on, the dark lava had devoured mutants or demons a few times, causing the black color to overshadow the red. So, the color of the dark serum would change according to different attributes and the host's growth. If the red gas was also the mutated dark serum of a demon with the King of Wrath bloodline, it was understandable. Delia's red aura was filled up again. She attacked Qinzhao again. The process was different, but the result was the same. Delia stared at Qinzhao in disbelief. Just like that, Qinzhao faced her attack head-on. He didn't dodge or block. But her attack didn't do anything. To her, this was completely incomprehensible. Was it because her magic level was too low? Impossible. In the past, these spells would be catastrophic and destructive. The other four were dumbfounded too. They knew that Qinzhao was powerful, but he was clearly very weak. How could he block Delia's attack when he was so weak? They couldn't understand. They couldn't understand. Qinzhao just stood there listlessly. "Looks like you don't have any other moves," Qinzhao said calmly. Gritting her teeth, Delia kept staring at Qinzhao. She really couldn't do anything. The most powerful spell was useless before Qinzhao. She didn't know what to do either. Qinzhao pointed at Delia. "Are you ready to die?" Panting, Delia looked at Qinzhao. Her mind spun. Although Qinzhao blocked all her attacks, he still couldn't move. But he hadn't really counterattacked. Even the black substance from before only wrapped around her scarlet giant, and did not attack her directly. Maybe he couldn't even fight back. Maybe he's just bluffing now. Qinzhao had absorbed quite a lot of scarlet aura. Although Delia's scarlet aura was endless, it was still too little. To Qinzhao, an extra drop of water in a lake didn't mean much. So, there was no point in keeping Delia alive. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. The vibration was very unusual. It interrupted Qinzhao's next move. Rumble, the entire barren market was shaking violently. Zhang Tianyi rushed to the edge of the roof and looked at a huge ball of fire in the distance. "Over there." Zhang Tianyi frowned. He remembered that it should be the location of one of the seals. It was the only seal that hadn't been opened yet. Wendy's expression was unprecedentedly serious. "All 4 seals have been opened. How is that possible? What exactly happened there? What's wrong? I've already monitored the area. There's no one nearby at all. Why was the seal still opened?" "You mean no one has been nearby?" Zhang Tianyi asked, surprised. "Yes, what's wrong?" "Not a single person. Not a single person. Is there a problem? That location isn't that remote. How is it possible that no one has approached that area?" Chapter 2286. At this time, even when De found the problem, that area was not remote. Judging from the number of participants in the Battle of Holy Glory in the entire desolate market, and the distribution of people, there should be people approaching that area. But the current situation was that no one approached that area at all. Wendy glanced at the place where the seal was unlocked in the distance, and turned back to the monitoring room. The scene in that area of the monitoring room was still calm, and nothing had happened. And compared to the changes that had happened in that area in reality, how could Wendy not understand that the monitoring screen had been tampered with? And this monitoring screen had been artificially modified, not by magic. There was no doubt that this must be AI Nancy's work. And AI Nancy considered that if magic was used to hide the truth in this monitoring screen, then Wendy would definitely be able to find out. Therefore, Nancy had used purely computer technology. This was the most important part. Wendy had a wealth of knowledge in magic and alchemy. But he knew nothing about computers, at least he didn't know anything about computers that exceeded the level of ordinary people. Wendy almost smashed the entire monitoring room. He had actually been toyed with by an apprentice over and over again. This was not a pleasant memory. "Success!" AI Nancy shouted in surprise. Although their plan had gone awry halfway. In particular, Scythe's death made them think that the plan had failed. But they didn't expect that the final twist would actually allow them to break 4 seals without any danger. The black soul floating around AI Nancy let out a strange laugh. Chi, success, it actually succeeded. The black soul seemed very excited. God's body. I'm about to have God's body. Just then, another companion said, Don't you think it's strange? Our seemingly perfect plan was actually riddled with holes. But such a flawed plan actually succeeded in the end. Don't you have any doubts? What you want to say is that there is another group of people with the same purpose as us? The black soul also calmed down. Isn't it obvious? Not only did the other party have the same purpose as us, but they also used our plan and made up for it in our plan. Whatever, let's go get God's body first, the black soul said impatiently. From his point of view, as long as they managed to get their hands on God's body, they would be the final winner regardless of the other party's motives. However, at that moment, someone else said, Only the few of us know about this plan, but the other group also knows about this plan. This means that one of us has betrayed the team. As soon as he said this, everyone couldn't help but stop and glance at each of their companions. It seemed that everyone was a suspect, and everyone had a reason to betray him. AI Nancy, you are the most suspicious, a companion said as he pointed at AI Nancy. What right do you have to say that about me? Anand glared at her companion. You've always been a traitor, so it's not surprising that you betrayed us again, is it? Just then, another person said, Russell, you're so eager to bite on Nancy. Could it be that you're the traitor? Dalav, do you think you're innocent? You've been secretly leaving marks along the way. Who are you leaving these marks for? At this time, another person was bitten out. AI Nancy was shocked to find that everyone seemed to have their own ulterior motives. Everyone had a reason to betray and be suspicious. On the contrary, she, the traitor, was the cleanest. At this moment, the mutual accusations and suspicions completely broke out. AI Nancy looked at these people. She watched them go from suspicion to quarrel, and from quarrel to fight. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot, and they attacked each other mercilessly. At this moment, Einander finally realized that something was wrong. Although they were all suspects, shouldn't the most important thing at this time be to collect the spoils of war that belonged to them? They shouldn't be killing each other here. And looking at their attacks, it seemed that they had no intention of showing mercy at all. Everyone attacked each other as if they were their mortal enemies. How could this be? How could this be? What's wrong with them? AI Nancy's mind shook. They were affected by some kind of magic. But how was this possible? Every one of them was a super expert. How could someone control their minds? No magic could control their minds at the same time. In fact, it was impossible for anyone to be controlled by someone. Even Zhang Tianyi or the 23rd generation Blood Mary couldn't do it. Although they were top experts, they could defeat her group of people, but they couldn't control them. What was going on? They hadn't lost their minds. Suddenly, a hand was placed on AI Nancy's shoulder. AI Nancy was so scared that she retreated and turned her head. He realized that it was an unfamiliar Asian face. Who are you? You're very special. I can't even see your fate. You should know that I can even influence those supreme spiritualists, but you can't. The Asian man had a faint smile. AI Nancy looked at the battlefield between her companions, and then at the Asian man. You're the mastermind behind all this? It's obvious, isn't it? The Asian man shrugged, and there was a proud smile on his face. I just gently fiddled with it, and then everyone's fate was entangled. Their actions, decisions, and even their thoughts were all guided and controlled by me. Who are you? Don't play tricks in front of me. AI Nancy was already secretly preparing to fight back. Who am I? My name is Li Zhongshan. Li Zhongshan? AI Nancy frowned. She didn't remember such a person in the spiritual world. You're very special, but you're still a little immature. If you become strong enough in the future, you can come find me and become one of us. AI Nancy wasn't so gullible. After silently brewing, she suddenly threw a bottle of magic water at Li Zhongshan. However, when the magic water was less than a foot away from Li Zhongshan, it suddenly stopped and condensed into a water ball in midair. I said, "You're not strong enough, and you're not smart enough. You shouldn't attack an existence stronger than you. Do you think you can make me retreat with just a few words? Then what do I have to do to make you leave? Do you need me to cut off your limbs? Or step over your dead body?" Chapter 2287. Just as AI Nancy was hesitating whether to retreat or not, an unfamiliar voice came from behind. "Li Zhongshan, stop playing around." AI Nancy suddenly turned around and looked behind her. It was a woman with short red hair, heavy makeup, and a low-cut top. The woman also had an Asian face. The woman just glanced at Nancy casually. AI Nancy felt like she was being stared at by a dangerous creature. All the hairs on her body stood up. Danger! This woman was extremely dangerous. "All right, Red Lotus, stop scaring the kids. Let's go." Li Zhongshan laughed and tried to smooth things over. The woman called Red Lotus looked at AI Nancy again before following Li Zhongshan's footsteps. AI Nancy's expression flickered. She looked at the departing Li Zhongshan and Red Lotus, then at her companions. They didn't seem to know two uninvited guests had just arrived. They were still fighting each other, as if they viewed everyone else as irreconcilable enemies. After Li Zhongshan and Red Lotus left, Li Zhongshan's expression suddenly darkened. "Did Shui Yiqing fail? I don't know the specifics, but he seems to have failed," Red Lotus said. "What do we do now? That Zhang Tianyi wasn't thrown into the game as a chess piece. If he tries to interfere, we won't be his match even if we work together. There's nothing we can do. Let's go meet up with the boss first, and see what he plans," Red Lotus said. The two quickly met up with their companions. The boss they spoke of was currently sitting on a rock, one hand on his temple as if he was in a deep sleep. To his left was a man in a black robe. His expression was extremely ugly, and somewhat annoyed. To his right was a woman holding a makeup box, dressing herself in front of the mirror. She didn't seem to care about the tense atmosphere in front of her. "Boss!" Li Zhongshan walked up and greeted him. The boss narrowed his eyes and looked at the returning Li Zhongshan and Red Lotus. "Yes, you're back. What's the situation now?" Li Zhongshan asked. "Let Shui Yiqing speak," the boss said indifferently. "According to the original plan, we planned to send Zhang Tianyi into the Scarlet Battlefield and make him a chess piece before releasing the Red Demon. But for some reason, the teleportation device was triggered, and Zhang Tianyi wasn't sent in. Could it be that someone else inadvertently met the conditions you set, so someone else replaced Zhang Tianyi and was transported inside?" Li Zhongshan asked. "Impossible. Although I have set up a lot of teleportation devices in the Wasteland Market, that device is specially reserved for Zhang Tianyi. Moreover, that device also has a specific condition. Other than Zhang Tianyi, no one else can trigger it. Could it be that Zhang Tianyi triggered it, and then he cracked it? I believe he can break it, but that teleportation happened in an instant. He doesn't have time to break it." "You've explained so much, but you still failed in the end," the woman said disdainfully. "All right, now is not the time to blame anyone. Scheming against Zhang Tianyi is already very risky. Shui Yiqing's failure isn't unexpected." The boss interrupted the woman. "We can only take it one step at a time. If we really have to face Zhang Tianyi, then we need to prepare in advance. Don't act rashly when the time comes. Don't look for me if it's convenient to fight. I can't help," Li Zhongshan said indifferently. He wasn't completely powerless, but he really didn't want to fight Zhang Tianyi. With his combat ability, fighting Zhang Tianyi was no different from suicide. "It's best not to fight if we can," the boss said in a low voice. "That old guy is really too strong. Even if we work together and prepare in advance, it's still hard to guarantee that we can escape unscathed." The boss looked at Li Zhongshan. "Old Li, do you have a way to make Zhang Tianyi change his mind? How is that possible? I'm not an immortal. That old man's cultivation is so much higher than mine. Previously, he was just scheming against me. I slightly twisted his mind. It's impossible for me to do it a second time." "That's right. Boss, since this mistake was caused by me, I have the responsibility to take responsibility. I'll deal with Zhang Tianyi, Shuiqing solemnly said. You? Are you sure you can stop him? Half an hour. I can stop him for half an hour at most. Oh, Shuiqing, when did you learn to talk big? You actually said you can stop Zhang Tianyi for half an hour? Even if all of us work together, we can't guarantee that we can stop him for half an hour. You're just talking big. The woman began to attack Shuiqing with sharp words. Everyone was already used to the woman's words and actions. The boss ignored the woman's harsh words and seriously looked at Shuiqing. Can you really guarantee that you can stop Zhang Tianyi for half an hour? I can. Good, half an hour. As long as you complete the mission, I'll let bygones be bygones. The boss stood up. Then let's move out and welcome the Red Demon. Bai Shui, are you ready? The woman put away her makeup box, a rare solemn expression on her face. Shuiqing, send us over there. Shuiqing nodded and casually threw out a die. It rolled until it was a 4. In an instant, the die shot out a beam of light that enveloped the boss, Li Zhongshan, Red Lotus, and Bai Shui. Then, the 4 disappeared from Shuiqing's sight. Shuiqing's expression of anger and regret disappeared, replaced with a meaningful smile. The next moment, the 4 appeared in the sky above the scarlet battlefield. What a dense scarlet aura! It looks like he's really about to come out. What a powerful aura! Even if he hasn't completely broken free of the seal, just this aura alone is enough to catch up to Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi's cultivation is unfathomable, but his methods aren't as simple as that. Ever since he became famous, no one has been able to probe his limits. There's no lack of people from our branches among them. Is that old man really that powerful? He's stronger than you think. The outside world isn't just bragging when they say that he's the strongest human in the spirit world. Oh, there's a battle over there. Let's go take a look, Li Zhongshan said. The 4 arrived above the battlefield and looked down at the battle below. What a powerful physique. Who's that man? When did someone like him appear in the Eastern spirit world? Although his physique is outstanding, why is his aura so weak? Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2288. Chen Zhao looked at the 4 figures passing by in the air. Chen Zhao's senses were restricted, but his vision was not. So, when they got close, Chen Zhao had already noticed them. The boss, Li Zhongshan, Red Lotus, and the dresser looked down at Chen Zhao. Then they looked at Angie, Bo Untu, Fi, and Orlando behind him. That woman is a pitiful person abandoned by the entire world, Li Zhongshan said with a smile. I only helped her a little. Everyone glanced at Li Zhongshan. They were already used to Li Zhongshan's bad habits. He liked to go around looking for special people, then after giving them a certain amount of help, he would collect high interest. For example, India couldn't cultivate her scarlet magic. Li Zhongshan had arranged for her to be transported here. She obtained what she'd been looking for so long here, the scarlet aura. India thought that she was lucky. But in reality, her fate was already controlled by someone. Li Zhongshan had controlled more than 100 people like India. Of course, most people were being controlled by Li Zhongshan without realizing it. They couldn't give Li Zhongshan anything in return. But as long as 1 or 2 succeeded, Li Zhongshan would receive a lot of rewards. Just then, the ground shook violently. A huge cross-shaped gash began to spread. A figure rose from the huge crack. The body had closed eyes and a head of golden hair. It was filled with divinity. Everyone had the same thought in their minds, God. The body that rose from the crack was God. However, it was just a body now. It didn't have any soul or consciousness. Has it started? Li Zhongshan and the others looked at the body. Just then, red tentacles extended out from the crack. They were all formed by the scarlet aura. Only, the red aura was far denser than the one on Delia's body. The red tentacles wrapped around God's body. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. That thing wanted to take over God's body. He couldn't let it happen before him. Qin Zhao moved and charged toward God's body. But the next moment, Qin Zhao's head hit an invisible wall, and he shot to the ground. This is a crucial time. Those who are not involved, please do not interfere with our plan. Boss raised his hand and said. Qin Zhao stood up awkwardly. The impact just now was not light. Almost all the power that Qin Zhao had used just now was reflected back to him. Qin Zhao looked at the 4 people in the air, and then at the top of the cross-shaped crack. In other words, you are the masterminds behind this conspiracy? Was I also teleported here by you guys? After it comes out, it will be very hungry, so it needs a large amount of food to fill its stomach before it can communicate normally. Boss calmly said. And you? As food, you should act like food. Just as everyone's attention was on Qin Zhao, a beam of golden light descended from the sky without warning. Judgment sword, evil, obliterate. Matthew held the blade of the sword that was filled with the power of glory, and the tip of the sword stabbed downward. An incomparably pure and holy pair of wings appeared behind Matthew. That divine power pierced through heaven and earth. But there was another figure faster than Matthew. Red Lotus moved and blocked in front of Matthew. Matthew's momentum was from above, so he could not turn at all. The sword was also indomitable. In an instant, the golden judgment sword pierced through Red Lotus' chest. But Red Lotus did not seem to be heavily injured. The judgment sword that pierced through her chest and back did not bring out blood, but strange flames. Matthew realized that something was wrong. He wanted to pull back his sword and retreat. But Red Lotus grabbed Matthew's arms, and Matthew felt a burning pain in his arms. The strange flames were spreading from Red Lotus' palms to Matthew's arms. Since you're here, don't run. Matthew was shocked. The burning pain was unbearable. Matthew suddenly raised his sword and slashed upward. The judgment sword sliced from Red Lotus' chest to her head, almost cutting her upper body in half. But Red Lotus was still unharmed. Her upper body had actually split into 2 bodies and 2 heads. Do it! Qin Zhao shouted. Enji, Bo Untu, Fi, and Otto behind him moved at the same time. Boss glanced at Qin Zhao's group. I've been waiting for you. Boss slapped at them through the air. Boss's palm turned into a giant Buddha palm and smashed down at them. Qin Zhao suddenly sped up and disappeared in the air. Boss was slightly surprised. Qin Zhao's speed was beyond his expectations. In the blink of an eye, Qin Zhao had appeared behind Matthew and Red Lotus. Qin Zhao's fist pierced through Red Lotus' back. One of Red Lotus' heads turned 180 degrees. Idiot. As soon as Red Lotus finished speaking, she suddenly felt uncomfortable. Qin Zhao's fist that was embedded in Red Lotus' back was crazily devouring her flesh and energy with the mouth of gluttony. You, save me! Red Lotus was shocked and cried out in alarm. So stupid. The dressing woman suddenly put away her mirror and kicked horizontally. Bang! Qin Zhao was sent flying. The Red Lotus fire on Red Lotus suddenly surged. All of you die. Red Lotus was furious. Seeing the Red Lotus fire approaching, Matthew immediately used holy light to protect his body. But the Red Lotus fire was far more powerful than he'd expected. The moment the Red Lotus fire touched his holy light, Matthew's holy light disintegrated. The Red Lotus fire spread to Matthew's body. Ah! Matthew let out a miserable scream as he fell to the ground, rolling around and wailing in pain. Qin Zhao saw Matthew's pitiful state from a distance. The dark lava immediately spread over and covered Matthew's body. Qin Zhao could feel the dark lava evaporating and dissipating. But he couldn't care so much right now. If he didn't, Matthew would definitely be burned to ashes by the Red Lotus fire. Thankfully, Qin Zhao saved him in time. The Red Lotus fire on Matthew was completely devoured. Matthew was sent to Qin Zhao by the dark lava. Right now, Matthew's original elegance and demeanor were long gone. Large areas of his body were burned. You're so pitiful, Qin Zhao couldn't help but say sarcastically. But I feel much better about you now. Matthew looked at Qin Zhao weakly. At least, I'm not dead, right? Thank you. Why do you feel much better about me now? You're more handsome than me now. You're not dead yet, but you'll die soon. The furious Red Lotus appeared above Qin Zhao and Matthew. Chapter 2289. Qin Zhao suddenly lifted his right arm. A ball of equally furious and terrifying Red Lotus fire burst out. Ah! Red Lotus let out a miserable cry and directly fell from the sky. Qin Zhao stared at Lotus in shock. He didn't expect this move to be so effective. Lotus's body had been burning with Red Lotus fire. Qin Zhao thought that she was immune to it. He didn't expect that he could absorb her Red Lotus fire through the mouth of gluttony and reflect it back. It had such an unexpected effect. See, I didn't expect to get revenge for you so soon. Matthew smiled bitterly at Qin Zhao. He also didn't expect Qin Zhao to defeat Lotus so easily. But you don't have time to relax yet. Matthew lay on the ground and looked at the two enemies coming from above Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao looked up at the boss and the dressed-up woman. The boss looked at Lotus on the ground with a terrible expression. When he looked at Qin Zhao, anger shot out of his eyes. Looks like I underestimated you. The dressed-up woman's aura grew stronger. She was clearly ready for battle. I haven't seen Lotus this miserable in a long time. Just then, Li Zhongshan said from the distance, Boss, this guy's life is too tough. I can't touch him. Don't be careless. Good. Very good. Light shot out of the boss's eyes. Yellow ghosts freeze. At that moment, Qin Zhao felt like his body was filled with lead. Every movement he made was extremely heavy. At the same time, the dressed-up woman's skin turned dark gold. Qin Zhao raised an eyebrow. This was very similar to his own moves. He could fuse elements into his body. Just as Qin Zhao was shocked, the dressed-up woman's attack came. Fast. It was indescribably fast. Everyone's eyes could only catch a glimpse of a golden light flashing past. The next moment, there was an explosion from Qin Zhao's chest and he was sent flying. The golden light sped up again, following Qin Zhao's path of flight with thousands of attacks. Boom, 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 the continuous attacks blasted Qin Zhao into the crack in the ground. In the end, the woman kicked heavily and Qin Zhao was smashed into the lava in the crack. Phew! Only then did the dressed-up woman stop, and a cloud of steam-like smoke came out from her back. The gold on her body receded, and the woman took out the vanity mirror again, as if she had just done something inconspicuous. The makeup has all fallen off. The woman began to touch up her makeup as if there was no one else around. Matthew was very sad to see Qin Zhao fall into the lava. At this moment, the red tentacles not far away had completely wrapped around God's body. Following that, the red tentacles began to disintegrate into scarlet gas before drilling into the god's body. Ahu, ahu, the god's body began to breathe heavily. The next moment, the god's body suddenly opened its eyes. It was a pair of scarlet pupils. However, his entire body rippled with an imposing aura. A golden wheel of light formed behind the head of the god's body. The body raised its palm and observed it carefully. Is this the body of a god? What a terrifying monster! The red devil had completely taken over this body. He was also called a monster by the world. But in the mouth of this monster, God was also a monstrous existence. Even though God had already died and only left behind a body, it still made him gasp in amazement. Greetings, Your Excellency Edilu. Boss slowly landed in front of the red demon and called him by his real name. The red devil was judged by the church to be a demon who would bring disaster to the world. However, few people knew his identity. He wasn't a pure demon. He had once been a member of the church, and a high-level one at that. He had lost a power struggle related to the church's pope. This caused him to switch to the evil camp. He opened the church's dungeon and released all the evil creatures and demons that had been imprisoned. Every evil creature he released had to hand over a drop of essence blood and be enslaved by him. Through absorbing the essence blood, he transformed himself into an indescribable monster. He also triggered the church's first crusade. The red devil glanced at Boss. I've long given up on my human name. Then do you need me to call you the Red Devil? You can also be the Scarlet God, the Red Devil said matter-of-factly. The Red Devil said matter-of-factly. I like working with you Easterners. Even if it's a vow from 1,000 years ago, you still abide by it and carry it out to the end. Boss had a faint smile on his face. Now it's time for you to fulfill your vow, Scarlet God. I'm hungry, the Red Devil said. I've prepared a sumptuous banquet for you, Boss said calmly. The Red Devil looked at Matthew and couldn't help but smile. He licked his lips. Then, he looked at Angie, Bo-Untu, Fee, and Alterando. The quality is excellent, but the quantity is a little low. The Red Devil's hatred towards the church was obvious. You can take a look at the entire battlefield. The Red Devil abruptly released his perception. In an instant, the entire scarlet battlefield fell into his range of senses. However, the Red Devil's gaze fell on the crack. What's inside? It was unclear if the Red Devil was talking to himself, or asking Boss. It's just a roasted corpse, Boss said calmly. Suddenly, magma surged out of the crack without any warning. It shot hundreds of meters into the sky. Everyone was startled by this sudden scene. A figure walked out of the erupting magma. Huh! He's not dead? Boss and the dresser were both shocked. Matthew and the others were naturally overjoyed. They also didn't expect Chen Zhao to still be alive. They didn't understand why Chen Zhao wasn't dead. But this wasn't important anymore. As long as he wasn't dead, it was more important than anything else. The dresser put away her vanity mirror again. When she looked at Chen Zhao, her eyes were filled with anger. So what if he's not dead? If I can defeat you once, I can defeat you again. With that, the dresser used the same trick again. Her body was covered in a layer of dark gold. It was that unparalleled speed again. Crack! But when the dresser appeared again, she realized that Chen Zhao had already lifted her upside down. One of her legs was firmly held by Chen Zhao. It was clearly twisted. The dresser didn't understand. Everyone didn't understand what had happened. But this result really happened. Caught you! Chapter 2290. Let go! Let go! The woman was both shocked and furious. Enduring the pain, she kicked Chen Zhao from the bottom with her other foot. But Chen Zhao also grabbed her other foot. Chen Zhao didn't go easy on her at all. He broke it right away. Chen Zhao casually threw the woman to the ground. The woman scratched the ground with both hands, trying to escape from Chen Zhao. Suddenly, a golden beam of light shot toward Chen Zhao without any warning. The light landed on Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was sent flying again. Chen Zhao didn't know how many times he'd been hit today. Anyway, ever since he'd entered the red battlefield. It seemed like anyone could hit him once or twice. Matthew watched as Chen Zhao stood up again. It was unexpected but also within expectations. He didn't know how many times Chen Zhao had been hit today. But no matter what kind of attack it was, no matter how many times Chen Zhao was hit, he could always stand up again. He really doubted if Chen Zhao's body was made of iron. He knew that Chen Zhao was an enhancer, and the body of an enhancer would definitely be much stronger than that of other spiritualists. But the few times Chen Zhao had been hit by were all extremely powerful attacks. Basically, he would lose half his life if he was hit by one of these attacks. But Chen Zhao could stand up unscathed every time. Just how strong was his physical body? Chen Zhao looked at the red demon. The body you're in seems to be worth a lot. The red demon looked at Chen Zhao. It belongs to me now. I like it. Give it to me, Chen Zhao said confidently. It was as if the red demon had to give it up just because he said that. Matthew's face was heavy and worried. The red demon and the body of a god. How terrifying would he become? Matthew didn't dare to imagine. And now, Chen Zhao was trying to anger the red demon. To Matthew, this was no different from suicide. There were still strong enemies around, not to mention the red demon. Chen Zhao might not even be able to beat the others. Just then, Indelia came to the red demon's side. As the red demon was unsealed, Indelia's power increased in all aspects. Her hatred for Chen Zhao had also reached its peak. The red demon had a disdainful smile. Clearly, he hadn't taken Chen Zhao seriously yet. The red demon pointed at the heavily injured red lotus on the ground. A golden light mixed with a wisp of scarlet landed on the dressing woman. The woman's legs were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not long after, the woman stood up again. Then, the red devil used the same method to heal Red Lotus. The burns on Red Lotus' body receded, and she regained her former glory. However, the Red Lotus fire on her body burned even brighter. It was a flame that contained her anger and hatred. "You must first defeat them," the red demon said with a smile. "They're just a bunch of losers. Do you expect them to buy time for you? To buy time for you? You said I'm stalling for time?" The red devil was a little angry. "Kill him. Of course. It's our duty." The boss nodded and turned to look at Chen Zhao. "Can you stop struggling? Let us end this farce happily." Matthew walked over to Chen Zhao with difficulty. There were still large areas of burns on his body. However, he still came to Chen Zhao's side, planning to use his last bit of power to fight alongside Chen Zhao. "Matthew, don't come over and be my burden. Go and be a quiet spectator." Matthew smiled bitterly. "I still have the strength to fight." He didn't think that Chen Zhao could win alone. Even Zhang Tianyi probably wouldn't have a chance of winning in this situation. A demon that had taken over a god's body, and this demon couldn't be killed. This kind of combination was already a hopeless combination. There was also a group of mysterious but extremely powerful spiritualists. He couldn't think of any way that Chen Zhao could win. Chen Zhao also revealed a serious expression. "Okay, if I really lie down, you can come and take over. Just be a patient for now. Don't push it. You'll die together." Red Lotus suddenly launched an attack. A flaming nova erupted from her body. Right now, Red Lotus was stronger and angrier than ever before. The dark lava blocked the flaming nova and wrapped around Chen Zhao and Matthew. However, the flames clearly countered the dark lava. This was also something that had never happened before. The dark lava was evaporating under the heat of the Red Lotus fire. Thankfully, Chen Zhao had a large amount of dark lava. After the flaming nova dissipated, the dark lava gradually retreated too. "Matthew, don't be a hindrance, okay?" Matthew's face was bright red. This was the first time he'd been called a hindrance. But it was the truth. Although he wanted to help, he couldn't even block one of the enemy's moves. But he couldn't even block half a move from the enemy. Not to mention helping Chen Zhao. Suddenly, the woman also attacked. Her skin turned darker and had a metallic sheen. Her skin became darker and had a metallic luster to it. She didn't hold back at all. She didn't hold back at all. She'd already suffered at Chen Zhao's hands. She knew that if she didn't use all her power, she would lie down soon. This unconventional speed and power forced Chen Zhao to use even more power. That line. Breakthrough. However, what followed was an invisible force that descended from the void. It landed on Chen Zhao's head. Boom! But Chen Zhao was prepared this time. The ground cracked and shattered. Chen Zhao stood upright. The woman's attack had arrived too. Chen Zhao punched and the woman was sent flying. "Green robe yellow demon, freeze!" the boss roared. But this time, he realized that the freeze curse that had been so easy last time was actually very difficult. Chen Zhao paused. Once again, he realized that his limbs felt like lead. He couldn't move. Moreover, the worldly power fell again. "Ha!" Chen Zhao roared and his power increased again. The worldly power also increased again. Another wave of majestic power fell from the sky. Rumble, amidst the smoke, Chen Zhao still didn't move. Boss spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was slightly pale. "How is this possible? Boss, his fate has increased. This guy is too terrifying!" Li Jiangshan yelled. All techniques returned to one. Chen Zhao increased his power again. Similarly, the worldly power increased again. Boom, 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 wave after wave of majestic power fell from the sky. It wasn't enough. This bit of power wasn't enough to fight against the worldly power. Then I'll strengthen it again. This time, Qin Zhao fought against the worldly power. Dark assimilation. Qin Zhao's power increased exponentially again. Wasn't it enough? Eye of power. His power doubled. Right now, the entire scarlet battlefield was shaking violently. Everyone on the ground couldn't stand steadily. Chapter 2291. Qin Zhao kept fighting against the power of heaven and earth. It wasn't a good feeling. However much Qin Zhao's power increased, the power of heaven and earth would increase accordingly. On the other hand, the attacks from the surrounding people were almost negligible. The huge force landed on Qin Zhao's head and then spread out from his body. The ground kept shaking violently. It wasn't just the scarlet battlefield that was shaking. Even the wasteland bazaar above the battlefield felt the tremors. The entire wasteland bazaar was shaking violently. The red demon's expression froze. He could feel the terrifying power emanating from Qin Zhao. It was power that wasn't below his. Qin Zhao also seemed to be fighting against an invisible enemy. Of course, the red demon wouldn't talk about chivalry with him. He wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. The red demon spread his arms, and countless spheres appeared in the air around him. The spheres were like suns, shining with golden light. Go to hell! All of the golden balls released a golden ray in an instant. All the rays were aimed at Qin Zhao in the center. Instantly, Qin Zhao was surrounded by the golden rays. There was no way to avoid the countless rays. Everyone couldn't open their eyes because of the piercing golden light. The golden light only lasted for about a second. However, everyone's vision only recovered after a dozen seconds. Matthew was even more anxious. He was the first to recover his vision. After all, his holy light magic was very similar to the red demon's attack to a large extent. They were all so dazzling and resplendent in gold and jade. So, he was more or less immune to the gold. Or rather, he was more or less adapted to it. He saw Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao was still standing there. But his entire body was covered in blood. His chest and back were covered in countless bloody holes. Seeing Qin Zhao's heavy injuries, Delia was overjoyed. She charged at Qin Zhao. Watch out! Matthew panicked. He climbed up with difficulty, but before he could take 2 steps, he fell to the ground again. When he opened his eyes again, he saw that half of Delia's body was leaning back. Qin Zhao's chest heaved. The wounds all over his body brought him intense pain. Qin Zhao's eyes were fierce as he scanned all the enemies present. All of you will die! Qin Zhao roared. Arrogant! You don't even know that you're about to die! The woman suddenly launched an attack. The woman no longer held back. Her speed was so fast that even she couldn't react. Of course, as long as it was a straight line of attack, there would be no problem. But when she stopped, she looked down and saw that her right arm and shoulder were gone. She turned around and saw Qin Zhao's back facing her. He was holding her missing arm. She also discovered that Qin Zhao's arm also had a metallic glow, just like hers. The metallic luster slowly spread throughout his body. Giant spirit divinization. Qin Zhao's body started growing bigger, and gold started covering his entire body. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, Qin Zhao's power increased by leaps and bounds again. The earth trembled even more violently. Those who could fly basically flew into the sky. Those who couldn't fly couldn't even stand. Matthew and the others, who were seriously injured, were in even more pain from the tremors. Li Zhongshan's expression changed. He could feel the terrifying aura from Qin Zhao. Now, he finally understood why Zhang Tianyi hadn't teleported in, but Qin Zhao had. One of the conditions for Zhuo Yiqing's teleportation was to limit one's strength. If one wasn't strong enough, they couldn't activate the teleportation. But Qin Zhao had clearly reached Zhang Tianyi's level. In fact, what he was displaying now was even more terrifying. Is this Qin Zhao's aura? Where is he? Is he releasing his power with all his might? Bifla saw that the entire wasteland market was falling apart. The terrifying power from the bottom to the top was constantly wreaking havoc in this place. The mirror image of the huge buildings was collapsing, the streets were cracking, and some places even had large holes in the ground. In an environment like this, casualties were unavoidable. Judging from the scale of the disaster, the casualties would probably not be small. As a newly advanced Shangqing realm cultivator, Bifla could clearly feel how powerful this power was. His own magic power was not on the same level at all. Of course, Bifla was also clear about his own position. In his opinion, Qin Zhao was a veteran Shangqing expert. It was normal for him to have a gap between them. After the Shangqing realm, the difference between each small realm could be several times or even dozens of times. Of course, knowing was one thing, but Bifla was still shocked by this aura. What's happening? Damn! Seeing that his lab was falling apart, Wendy's face was filled with shock and anger. Zhang Tianyi strolled to the door with Kelly and Ivory. Wendy, it looks like this place is going to be destroyed. Let's go. Celestial Master Zhang, what's going on? Is it because the seal has been released? I don't know, but this shaking isn't because of the seal being released. Maybe it's related, but it's not caused by the thing in the seal. Then who did it? Damn, if this keeps shaking, the entire wasteland market will be destroyed. Wendy and Zhang Tianyi walked out of the building with Kelly and Ivory. The building collapsed. Kelly and Ivory looked at the apocalyptic scene before them. The ground was cracking. The buildings before them were collapsing one after another. Celestial Master, is this really man-made? Kelly asked in fear. Zhang Tianyi nodded silently. Yes, and you know that person. You mean Chun? Yes, it seems like he's in big trouble. He actually used this much power. Zhang Tianyi looked up at the sky. Something seemed to be brewing in the dusky sky. Suddenly, an incomparably huge crack appeared in the ground. Kelly stepped on nothing and suddenly felt weightless. The next moment, Kelly let out a shrill scream, and her whole body fell down. Zhang Tianyi caught Kelly. Be careful. You're dead if you fall from here. Suddenly, a ring exploded in the sky. Then, a pillar of light descended from the sky. Rather than a pillar of light, it was more like a lightning pillar. The lightning pillar was like a skyscraper that connected the sky and the earth. Zhang Tianyi's eyes widened, his face filled with shock. The beam of light was not very far away from him, and he could feel the power contained in the lightning beam. But what shocked him more was what the lightning pillar represented. It was a legendary scene, a heavenly tribulation. Chapter 2292. In the Scarlet Battlefield, when everyone saw the rock layer above their heads being torn apart, everyone thought that it was a way out. But a terrifying pillar of light descended from the sky. It hit Qin Zhao's body directly. The terrifying impact forced everyone to retreat in an instant. What Qin Zhao felt was thousands of times worse than the others. Qin Zhao felt the entire world pressing down on him. Even Qin Zhao's 10,000 techniques returned to one, even Qin Zhao's dark assimilation, even his eye of power, and mighty spirit form couldn't resist the immense pressure. The lightning contained in the pillar of light was ineffective against Qin Zhao. But what truly made Qin Zhao feel pain was the seemingly solid pressure. He couldn't stop it. He really couldn't. Even though Qin Zhao possessed billions of tons of power, it seemed so insignificant before the might of the world. Li Zhongshan looked at the pillar of light that pierced through the sky. Boss, we don't need to do anything. That guy's about to die. His fate is continuously weakening, Li Zhongshan said. The boss heaved a long sigh of relief. He had to admit that Qin Zhao gave him a lot of pressure. Even if the four of them worked together, they might not be able to defeat that guy. But Qin Zhao's thoughts were extremely clear. Unprecedentedly clear. Qin Zhao's heart skipped a beat. This power definitely couldn't be blocked. Even Zhang Tianyi would be crushed by this power. Then he'd make this power his. Qin Zhao suddenly deactivated mighty spirit form. Instead, he used the same method to forcefully absorb this power. The basic principle of mighty spirit form was to absorb the spiritual qi in the world. The effects of mighty spirit form would increase according to how much spiritual qi one's body could withstand. Qin Zhao's current method was only a temporary solution. Right now, he had no choice but to be crushed by the power of the heavens and earth. He could either be crushed by the power of the world, or forcefully steal this power and make it his own. Of course, this was also very risky. This was a power that Qin Zhao had never come into contact with before. He didn't know the characteristics of this power at all. It was like a person running into a factory and stuffing raw materials into their mouth. Whether the raw material was edible or poisonous, no one could be sure. Of course, the cultivation system in the spiritual world was more complicated. If an external energy enters the body, can it create this energy? For example, Chen Zhao had to expel his current energy from his body in order for the worldly power to enter his body. However, after the power of heaven and earth entered his body, would his body be able to produce energy of the same quality? If he couldn't create energy of the same quality, no matter how much he absorbed or how much energy he had, he would run out one day. If his body could produce the same amount of energy, he would be able to solve his worries. However, this wasn't a difficult choice for Chen Zhao. It was a good choice between survival and death. Chen Zhao absorbed the energy into his body. Instantly, Chen Zhao felt a sharp pain. This energy was simply too violent. It was as if it wanted to destroy everything. All the cells seemed to be destroyed by this force. But Chen Zhao's huge life force also started running wildly and being consumed. Chen Zhao's life force was pouring out wildly. Once Chen Zhao's life force was used up, what awaited him was death. Suddenly, the evolution system in his body changed again. Chen Zhao saw it. He saw it in his body. He could see that every cell in his body was changing. The energy that entered his body was being cut into countless individuals. Then, the cells in his body started absorbing the energy in a regular pattern. Gradually, Chen Zhao realized that the pain disappeared. It was replaced by an empty stomach. Hunger. Chen Zhao realized that he actually developed an appetite for the power of heaven and earth that landed on his body. Chen Zhao started devouring the power of heaven and earth like crazy. The cells in his body continued to evolve and adapt to the power of heaven and earth. Suddenly, Li Jiangshan's expression changed. "What's wrong? What happened?" "He didn't die. His fate is strengthening." "Didn't die? How is that possible? How could he survive that kind of impact?" The pillar of light was weakening. It was clearly weakening. But in the pillar of light, another figure was appearing. Qin Zhao felt something completely different from the Jin state. While Qin Zhao was still immersed in his different Jin forms, a voice suddenly rang out. Countless golden lights shot toward Qin Zhao again. Qin Zhao's heart jumped. His body suddenly turned pure white. In an instant, countless rays of golden light pierced through his body. Energy transformation. Qin Zhao realized that he could actually turn into energy. Seeing Qin Zhao's energy form, the red demon couldn't help but frown. Qin Zhao gave him a very bad feeling. Very, very bad. Qin Zhao also stopped studying his new form and turned to look at the red demon. In an instant, Qin Zhao turned into a beam of light and reformed his real body in front of the red demon. Qin Zhao ignored the red demon. Instead, he looked back at where he had been just now. Just now, he was about 1,000 meters away from where he was now, but he actually moved so far away in an instant. This made Qin Zhao very curious about his speed just now. It definitely wasn't the speed of light, but it was definitely faster than his original speed. Qin Zhao's fastest speed could reach Mach 40. He could jump more than 10 kilometers in a second. This was pretty much the fastest flying speed of current technology. But in that instant, Qin Zhao felt that his speed after turning into energy had clearly increased. But this was understandable. After all, after the body turned into energy, its mass would definitely be infinitely close to zero. The smaller the mass, the faster the body would move after being affected by force. "You still dare to be distracted when facing me?" The red demon suddenly grabbed at Qin Zhao. Not only had Qin Zhao's speed increased, but his reaction speed had also reached a terrifying level. The moment the red demon attacked, Qin Zhao also attacked. The moment the red demon grabbed Qin Zhao, he immediately turned into energy. The red demon's attack missed. But Qin Zhao's attack came as expected. Qin Zhao's palm slapped the red demon's face. Then, the moment the red demon was sent flying, his face looked like it had been burned. The red demon stood up again. Qin Zhao's attack hadn't caused any actual damage to him. The burn on his face quickly disappeared too. Plus, this body wasn't his to begin with, so he didn't feel any pain. But the red demon felt a strong threat. Chapter 2293. Matthew and the others were dumbfounded. Although he, Angie, and the others were all in a sorry state. But now, there seemed to be a chance to turn the tables. Qin Zhao rubbed his palm. He turned to look at Matthew, who was not far away. We've hit the bottom. Hee. I've hit the bottom. Matthew smiled bitterly. What's your situation now? Looks like I've broken through. Qin Zhao felt the information from every cell. Every cell carried a huge amount of energy. From a biological perspective, Qin Zhao had already transformed from a human to a non-human. As long as Qin Zhao's yin-yang inner core released immortal power, the cells would immediately absorb it and turn it into a physical form. As long as Qin Zhao put away his immortal power, his cells would immediately turn into energy. This was also why Qin Zhao switched between his energy form and his physical form. Now that Qin Zhao was no longer restrained, he felt both physically and mentally relaxed. A beam of white light shot out of Qin Zhao's eyes and shot toward the red demon. Rumble! A huge explosion occurred on the red demon's body. Chen! Are you trying to become a Superman? However, Superman has a red ray. Why don't you learn a death ray? Matthew teased. Qin Zhao rubbed his forehead. The white light that shot out of his eyes wasn't his own attack. It was purely an accident. However, he had to admit that he was quite satisfied with the attack just now. It was powerful and cool enough. After the cigarette was extinguished, the red devil's chest caved in, and there was a trail of blood at the corner of his mouth. Although he was now in the body of a god, he did not have the glory of a god. There were only ferocious gazes and terrifying thoughts that made one's hair stand up. I admit that you are powerful. The red devil grinned. Qin Zhao didn't pay attention to the red demon. Instead, he looked at his palm. Her originally white palm was first covered in a layer of black, then a layer of gold. Qin Zhao tried to use dark assimilation and Jin divinization on the basis of the energy form. The effect seemed pretty good. Qin Zhao had been worried whether this new energy could coexist with dark assimilation and Jin divinization. Now, it seemed that his worries were unnecessary. However, it was different from dark assimilation and Jin divinization. This form of energy was permanent. It was different from dark assimilation and Jin divinization. As long as he wanted to, he could maintain his energy form forever. Qin Zhao could switch between physical and energy forms at will. In his energy form, Qin Zhao could also use dark assimilation and Jin form. There was no conflict between the three. He also made a new discovery. Originally, Qin Zhao had thought that after covering his energy form with dark assimilation and Jin state, he would be able to use his strongest power without being attacked by the enemy. This was the most ideal state. But what Qin Zhao didn't expect was that when he used dark assimilation and mighty divinity in this form, the energy would stick to his body. The red demon was annoyed because Qin Zhao had ignored him again. Red demon raised his arms high, and a terrifying red fireball gathered above his head. The huge fireball was like the sun, with a diameter of more than 3 kilometers. The entire scarlet battlefield was shrouded in the terror of that huge fireball. Even Qin Zhao was frightened by the terrifying super fireball. If this thing fell to the ground, he might not die. But everyone on the scarlet battlefield and even in the wasteland market above would die. But how was he going to block such a huge and terrifying fireball? After thinking about it, Qin Zhao still decided to try with dark lava. This was the first time Qin Zhao had no confidence at all. The energy contained in this super fireball was too great. Go to hell! The red demon suddenly pushed the super fireball. Qin Zhao could dodge it. The super fireball wasn't slow. But compared to Qin Zhao, it was like an ant crawling. But Qin Zhao couldn't dodge it. He had no choice. When the super fireball reached Qin Zhao felt even more deeply the size of the super fireball and his own insignificance. Suddenly, dark lava burst out of Qin Zhao's palms. In an instant, a huge black cloth covered the super fireball. Suddenly, dark magma burst out of Qin Zhao's palms. In an instant, the stars turned into a huge black cloth, covering the super fireball. Seeing that his attack was blocked, the red demon sneered. When the red devil saw that his attack had been blocked, he sneered. "I've been waiting for this move of yours." The red demon shouted. "Perish!" Before Qin Zhao could catch his breath, he felt the super fireball explode inside the dark lava. The black curtain formed by the dark lava suddenly expanded, about to burst at any moment. Qin Zhao's expression changed. The terrifying energy of the super fireball was enough to destroy everything here. But now that it was compressed, the energy that exploded again would be even more terrifying. Dark assimilation. Qin Zhao had no choice. He could either let the destructive energy from the super fireball explode pour out, or he could think of a way to transfer the energy. Qin Zhao thought of this method to let himself bear the full force of this energy. The instant Qin Zhao used dark assimilation, the dark lava fused into his body. At the same time, it also brought the destructive energy into Qin Zhao's body. But to his surprise, Qin Zhao's eyes widened. The energy was huge, but it didn't make Qin Zhao feel very uncomfortable. Instead, it gave Qin Zhao a sense of satisfaction and fullness. Also, this energy was much weaker than the power of heaven and earth from before. Burp, Qin Zhao burped. Everyone was dumbfounded. They stared at Qin Zhao in shock. That's it. Was there a mistake somewhere? But just then, Qin Zhao's body changed again. Every cell in Qin Zhao's body seemed to be ignited. But this time, the cells didn't die because of the destructive power. They only ignited Qin Zhao's body. Qin Zhao was stunned. It seemed that the cells were digesting the energy. This time, Qin Zhao's body functions didn't change. He didn't evolve either. In other words, this was an acceptable state for his body. Qin Zhao started guessing. The explosive energy from the super fireball should be fire energy. After absorbing the fire energy, his body's energy form also turned into fire. If he absorbed energy of other elements, would it also turn into the corresponding energy form? Qin Zhao looked at the red demon and suddenly pounced at him. Right now, Qin Zhao was extremely fast. The red demon's reaction was also very fast, but speed wasn't his strong point. He was barely able to put up a defensive stance. Chapter 2294. Bang! There was a deep sound. Qin Zhao threw a punch. The flames on his fist weren't very effective against the red demon. After all, the energy was his to begin with. But Qin Zhao's power wasn't something he could block. Whether it was the red demon himself, or the god's body he'd taken over, they weren't known for their strength. After all, Qin Zhao had killed the god of strength before. And he'd done it with pure strength. Not to mention the sun god. The red demon was sent flying. His body ignited from the friction in the air and fell like a meteor. The ground cracked and flames shot into the sky. This time, the red demon stood up with some difficulty. Qin Zhao's punch had caused great damage to the god's body. What was even more terrifying was the energy on his fist. It wasn't the flames on his fist, but the energy hidden under the flames. That energy had caused a certain amount of damage to his soul. If the god's body hadn't blocked most of the damage for him, this punch would probably have destroyed his soul. The red devil turned pale with fright. He'd never seen such a monster-like human before. In the era when he'd been sealed, if there had been someone who could fight him or kill him, they wouldn't have spent so much effort to seal him. In order to seal him, they'd even used the body of a noble god to suppress him. He'd even boldly plotted against this god's body. It was because he was confident that no one could kill him. Even being sealed in the end was part of his plan. However, after being sealed for 1,000 years, he'd successfully taken over the god's body. He didn't expect to encounter such a terrifying enemy right after coming out of the seal. The god's body had already been severely damaged. But the red demon still used the scarlet chi to repair the damaged body. After all, the red demon wasn't a god. His power wasn't enough to repair the god's body. Therefore, the parts that were repaired with the scarlet chi were clearly distorted and mutated. Qin Zhao could clearly feel that the flame energy had decreased greatly after that blow. It was different from the other energies in Qin Zhao's body. Qin Zhao's yin and yang qi could be obtained by absorbing cosmic rays from the sky every day, and then converted for cultivation. Immortal qi was Qin Zhao's most basic source of power. It was obtained from the yin and yang inner elixir in his body. There was also the energy that was converted from absorbing the world energy. After absorbing the energy, Qin Zhao's body evolved. Not only could the cells store this energy, but they could also generate this energy on their own. However, fire energy was different. Fire energy was completely external. The fire energy was more like stale food. After eating it, Qin Zhao had this special energy temporarily. But it wasn't absolute possession and acquisition. On the outskirts of the battlefield, Boss, Li Zhongshan, as well as the heavily injured Red Lotus and the dresser woman, could all see the situation in the middle of the battlefield. They didn't expect that nobody would be able to defeat him. Their partner, an ancient devil, couldn't even fight back. The Red Devil was definitely not an ordinary creature. He was an existence that brought terror and turmoil to medieval Europe. Obtaining the title of devil as a human. The Red Devil was definitely the first. The Red Devil that had ravaged the European continent for more than 100 years. But now, he was beaten up by a stranger. This made them somewhat unable to accept this result. Their cooperation with the Red Devil was the hard work of several generations over the centuries. It wasn't for this result. "Boss, let's go," Li Zhongshan said in an extremely calm tone. "It's not worth sacrificing all of us for the Red Devil." Of course, Boss knew this. As long as they were alive, there was still a chance. But he just couldn't accept it. All the arrangements, the hard work of several generations over the centuries. But because of such an unexpected factor, an outsider, everything had gone to waste. All their blood, sweat, and tears had gone down the drain. How could he accept it? "Boss, let's go while that guy's attention isn't on us," Li Zhongshan said. Right now, Qin Zhao's attention wasn't just on them. Most of his attention wasn't even on the Red Devil. He was still studying the changes in his body. Inside and outside the battlefield, there was a strange silence. Everyone stared at Qin Zhao. They were waiting for his next move. Qin Zhao had an idea. He condensed the energy in his palm. As expected, the energy gathered into an energy ball. Qin Zhao looked at the energy ball in his hand and then looked for the Red Devil. He tossed it casually. The Red Devil had suffered once, so he was already prepared for Qin Zhao's next move. A golden energy barrier blocked the Red Devil's path. But the moment the energy ball touched the barrier, it didn't stop. It pierced through the barrier. The barrier didn't collapse. The energy ball only left a round hole in it. The Red Devil didn't expect the energy ball to be so terrifying. It actually pierced through the golden barrier. Boom! There was another terrifying explosion and a terrifying shockwave. Qin Zhao looked at the location of the explosion, confusion on his face. The power of that energy ball was indeed very strong. But Qin Zhao paid more attention to its characteristics. It seemed to have a strong penetrative ability against energy. And it could instantly explode against physical objects. As for power, it was shocking in other people's eyes. But to Qin Zhao, it was only average. But in terms of consumption, it was also negligible. After a simple test, Qin Zhao roughly estimated his changes. In terms of power, Qin Zhao didn't increase much. But the increase in speed was Qin Zhao's biggest gain. Qin Zhao didn't have the exact data, but it was at least 3 times or more faster. Also, his body could turn into energy, which allowed him to nullify many attacks, especially physical attacks. This was especially true for physical attacks. In the past, Qin Zhao had mostly relied on his strong body to deal with physical attacks. But now, he was immune to physical attacks. At the same time, Qin Zhao developed some energy attacks. But for now, these energy attacks didn't have an obvious increase in pure destructive power. Huh! You want to run? Qin Zhao realized that the Red Devil was planning to use the smoke from the explosion to escape. Qin Zhao immediately blocked the Red Devil's path. You can't go there. The Red Devil grabbed at Qin Zhao. The moment he grabbed Qin Zhao's arms, a scarlet aura surged toward him. Chapter 2295. The Red Demon could already feel it. There was a clear difference between him and Qin Zhao. Even with this god's body, he couldn't beat Qin Zhao. If he continued fighting, he would only die in an ugly way. But he knew that it was almost impossible for him to escape from Qin Zhao. At their level, their perception had already reached a terrifying level. Their auras were as eye-catching as light bulbs. It was even more impossible for him to escape from Qin Zhao. That was why the Red Demon had come up with such a risky move. That was to take over Qin Zhao's body. And if this plan succeeds, he could completely abandon this god's body. Qin Zhao's body was stronger than a god's body. Of course, as long as he obtained Qin Zhao's body, this god's body would be useless. But Qin Zhao was also waiting for this opportunity. Qin Zhao also grabbed the Red Demon. Looks like we have the same goal. Qin Zhao looked at the Red Demon. The Red Demon was shocked. He vaguely felt a trace of unease. But he didn't have time to think of a way out. He could only continue trying to use the red aura to invade Qin Zhao's body. But just then, dark lava spread out from Qin Zhao's palms that grabbed the Red Demon's shoulders. The dark lava started spreading above the Red Demon's neck, then his mouth, nose, and ears. The Red Demon was shocked to find that his red aura was useless against Qin Zhao. Meanwhile, Qin Zhao's dark lava was eating away at the god's body. Even his own scarlet energy was being nibbled away. Looks like we have the same bloodline, but your red aura can't compare to my dark lava. Qin Zhao grinned. Same bloodline? The Red Demon was shocked. He knew himself very well. In the beginning, he didn't have any demon bloodline. He was purely human. He just absorbed and fused with large amounts of demon blood. As for how many types of demon blood he had absorbed, he didn't know either. Also, he didn't know what kind of special demon bloodline there was. As for the final transformation and the process of turning into a red demon, he didn't know either. What he used was also ancient magic, combined with some of his own insights. Now, after being exposed by Qin Zhao, he finally understood his bloodline. Actually, Qin Zhao knew the effects of the demonic bloodline and the transformation process much better than the Red Demon. After all, Qin Zhao had personally guided the demonization of a few normal creatures. He had also done related research and experiments. Although he did not know the specific situation of the Red Devil. But judging from the chaotic bloodline aura in his aura, it was clear that he had a very good chance of survival. He had obviously fused with the bloodline of other demons. Therefore, he could roughly analyze the formation process of the Red Devil. It was very likely that he had the bloodline of a king of wrath, and then fused it with the bloodline of other demons. However, this fusion process was not pure, and there were too many impurities from other bloodlines. This caused his power to become very chaotic. Actually, Qin Zhao had used the same or similar method before. Qin Zhao had used dark lava to devour and fuse with other mutants and demons. Nevertheless, Qin Zhao's bloodline was given by Samuel himself. In terms of bloodline, Qin Zhao's was more advanced than the Red Demon's. It wasn't that the higher the grade of something, the better it was. However, when it came to bloodlines, the higher the grade, the better. The red demon was terrified. After trying to no avail, he realized that the red gas had no effect on Chen Zhao at all. He wanted to escape, but his body was firmly held in Chen Zhao's hands. He could not escape either. In the end, the red demon could only choose to leave the god's body. Large amounts of red gas spread out from the god's body and spread out wildly. The red demon tried to escape using this method. Don't even think about going anywhere. Seeing that the god's body had lost its resistance, Chen Zhao put it away. The dark lava enveloped the red gas. It was different from the red gas he had devoured from Delia. The red fiend's true form was countless times thicker than the scarlet aura surrounding Delia. This was the real nourishment pill. A terrified face appeared in the scarlet gas. He wanted to escape frantically, even splitting into a few parts as bait. But Chen Zhao did not care about all these tricks. He let the dark lava envelop him, forming an absolutely sealed space. If you don't give me a way out, then we'll die together, the red demon roared. If you can do it, then come. Soon, Chen Zhao realized what the red demon wanted to do. Self-destruct? That's meaningless to me. I want to devour your origin. It doesn't matter even if you self-destruct. The red demon heard Chen Zhao's words. Even if he knew that it was meaningless, he had nowhere to go. But he had no way out. The red gas was like a flammable gas. It ignited in this sealed and dark space. However, the red demon's self-destruction was not that kind of explosion. Instead, it instantly contracted all the red gas and turned it into a sphere. Then the sphere radiated billions of rays of light that spread in all directions. The sealed space enveloped by the dark lava was instantly penetrated from the inside, like a leaking bag. Chen Zhao pursed his lips, feeling that he had suffered a loss. The red demon's self-destruction did not hurt him. However, at least a quarter of the dark lava had been evaporated by the explosion. The red gas that Chen Zhao had devoured from the red demon could not make up for the loss at all. Chen Zhao sighed and looked up at the sky. Two pairs of eyes looked down from above as well. The two gazes were Bifla and Zhang Tianyi. Chen Zhao landed on the ground and looked at Matthew. Then he pulled Angie, Paolo, Fi, and Otranto to Matthew's side. Looks like there's nothing here. I'm leaving. You're not bringing us up? Matthew complained, looking at Chen Zhao. Someone's coming down to pick you up. I don't have to take responsibility. You're too irresponsible. I'm not your father. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. After this trial, let's drink together, Matthew said. You should recover from your injuries first. I'm afraid you're going to be disfigured soon. There are many healing spells in our church. This kind of injury is nothing. Looks like my pity for you is unnecessary. I'm leaving. Goodbye. When Chen Zhao flew into the sky, he saw John Sr. fall from the crack. The two of them looked at each other and nodded as a greeting. Chapter 2296. As soon as Chen Zhao exited the crack, he saw a scene of devastation. The entire wasteland market had been destroyed. During the violent tremors in the battle between Chen Zhao and the Red Demon, the entire wasteland market had been reduced to ruins. Looking around, there wasn't a single intact building. Just then, two figures approached Chen Zhao from different directions. One was Bifla and the other was Zhang Tianyi. Chen Zhao. Zhang Tianyi arrived before Chen Zhao first. Bifla followed closely behind. When they arrived before Chen Zhao, they both stared at him. At the same time, they used their senses to check Chen Zhao's body condition. You're completely different now, Zhang Tianyi exclaimed. Zhang Tianyi exclaimed. Your body has almost been reforged. It's as if you've been reborn in the legends. Bifla didn't understand as well as Zhang Tianyi, but he was also very interested in Chen Zhao. After all, Chen Zhao's current path was also the path he might walk in the future. I've changed a lot now? Normal people can't tell, but I can, Zhang Tianyi said. I've never thought that someone could walk before me, but it seems like you're half a step ahead of me. What realm am I in now? Still in Shangqing, Zhang Tianyi said. I thought I'd surpassed Shangqing. In ancient records, Shangqing is divided into spiritual movement, embryonic breathing, sitting death, and spiritual silence. You're in the last step of Shangqing, spiritual silence. What about after me? No, Zhang Tianyi said. Since ancient times, only a few people have reached Shangqing. For example, in our era, it's already a sign of prosperity for the spiritual world to have a few Shangqing cultivators in the same generation. As for your current cultivation, it's not an exaggeration to say that you're the first in history. No one has reached the later stages, so there's naturally no realm. If you want to improve, you'll have to figure it out yourself. Oh. Can I be called the first person in history now? So I'm invincible now? Among humans, you should be invincible, Zhang Tianyi said. It's a pity that I don't have thousands of people worshipping me. If you want, I can arrange a way for you. I can even make your name resound through the entire spiritual world the next day. Forget it then. Let's find a place to sit, Zhang Tianyi said. I need to ask you how you felt when you went through the heavenly tribulation, as well as the entire process of transcending the tribulation. I think Baifla also wants to know. The three of them found the rooftop of a half-collapsed building. The three of them sat down cross-legged. After a moment of silence, Chen Zhao began to describe the entire process of his heavenly tribulation. There were also the psychological and physical changes before and after. In fact, only after Zhang Tianyi's explanation did Chen Zhao realize that he was experiencing a heavenly tribulation. Chen Zhao didn't keep it to himself. Chen Zhao also knew that the title of the most powerful person in the world, or even the most powerful person in all of history, was very clear. But at the same time, there were many unknown dangers. Without a guide, he could only rely on his own exploration. Who knew when he would go berserk? But if there were one or two fellow travelers, everyone would discuss and explore with each other. Then perhaps the road would be easier to follow. However, Chen Zhao's heavenly tribulation was definitely a coincidence. Logically speaking, Chen Zhao shouldn't be undergoing the tribulation. Chen Zhao wasn't weaker than Zhang Tianyi, but he was still weaker. If there was a heavenly tribulation, it should be Zhang Tianyi. But Chen Zhao did it first. There were many coincidences in the process. If Chen Zhao hadn't been transported to the Scarlet Battlefield and sealed, then there wouldn't have been so many things later. Celestial Master Zhang, is that seal the key? According to what Chen Zhao said, can you use the seal to suppress it and then use it to trigger the heavenly tribulation? Can I do the same in the future? Baifla asked. Zhang Tianyi thought for a long while and shook his head. There are too many uncertain factors. For example, can I have Chen Zhao's ability to resist pressure? Another example is whether or not I can be like him, using the suppression of the seal to trigger the heavenly tribulation. Another example is whether or not I can withstand the heavenly tribulation after it descends. Also, can I be like him, absorbing the energy of the heavenly tribulation and turning it into my own? In other words, Chen Zhao's method isn't good. It's not, but it's worth studying, Zhang Tianyi said. Zhang Tianyi said. Moreover, the three of us have different das, so there's no point in blindly imitating him. There's no need to copy his method of triggering the heavenly tribulation. Even if I were to trigger the heavenly tribulation right now, I probably wouldn't have complete confidence in passing it. However, Chen Zhao's experiences are truly priceless treasures for us. Now that you mention it, I think I should open a paid course. It should be good. Zhang Tianyi and Baifla couldn't help but roll their eyes. Even if Chen Zhao really opened a paid course for the heavenly tribulation, the number of spiritualists who could understand it could be counted on one hand. As for the people who could really use it, apart from Zhang Tianyi and Baifla, only 23rd generation Blood Mary would be useful. By the way, you guys said before that the appearance of a Shangqing realm expert in a few hundred years is already considered the peak of the spiritual world. But in this era, the three of us, 23rd generation Blood Mary, and Old John, who's close to Shangqing realm, far surpasses any era in the past. Does this count as a flourishing era? Usually, the flourishing era of the spiritual world appears in the middle or late stages of the spiritual chi tide. Our era is only in the middle or early stages of the spiritual chi tide. Based on the density of the spiritual chi in the world, it's far from the peak of the spiritual world. If there's no special reason, it can only be a coincidence that several Shang-Qing realm experts have appeared in the world at the same time. Please don't tell me there's some demon king that needs many experts to work together to suppress him. That's why there are so many experts in this era. It's always like that in movies and TV shows. Maybe that's you. Everyone was in a good mood. As for the catastrophic damage that Qin Zhao had indirectly caused, the three didn't seem to care at all. Qin Zhao didn't feel guilty at all. It wasn't because of his subjective reasons anyway. Moreover, after the incident, Qin Zhao had actively reduced the damage. In terms of responsibility, Zhang Tianyi, as one of the people in charge, was definitely more responsible than him. Chapter 2297. Of course, this was just shirking the responsibility. But Qin Zhao, Zhang Tianyi, and even Baifla, who was not involved, did not take it to heart. On one hand, it was because their own people were unharmed. On the other hand, it was because in their minds, how could there be no casualties on the battlefield? In the previous disaster, after confirming that his sect of fire team was fine, Baifla helped Qin Zhao's team from the supernatural organization. So, the supernatural organization did not suffer any casualties. Then, the trial of the Battle of the Holy Glory was stopped. And the participants who survived this trial all obtained the right to advance. Actually, it was more like a new trial than an advancement. After all, there were too many unexpected factors in this trial, causing many accidents. In the end, there were even large-scale casualties. Of course, the organizers of the Battle of the Holy Glory would not say a new trial. They would say that everyone advanced. But advancing meant that they had to go through a new trial. If they all advanced, none of them advanced. But the participants of the Battle of the Holy Glory could not do anything. Even though some teams had good results, and some had bad results, they had survived the disaster. However, due to special circumstances, good luck, or sufficient strength, they managed to survive the catastrophe. Qin Zhao, the instigator, had left the desolate market earlier. Qin Zhao was resting in the hotel room when someone knocked on the door. Qin Zhao lay on the sofa and video-called Fei Lai and his child. Glancing at the door, dark lava extended and opened it. Qin Zhao remembered the man in black outside. He should be the 23rd Blood Mary's attendant. Mr. Qin, Blood Mary wants to see you. Do you have time now? Wait, Qin Zhao said. I'm talking to my family. Okay, can I wait for you here? The man asked. Close the door first. Qin Zhao was not happy to let an outsider listen to his conversation with his family. Okay, I'll wait for you outside. The man did not reject or refute. He had only received orders to invite Qin Zhao. Whether Qin Zhao came or not, he could not be rude to Qin Zhao. Moreover, Blood Mary's tone was more cautious than last time. After the man closed the door, Qin Zhao continued chatting with Fei Lai. Little Jerlin and little Larissa were playing on Fei Lai's body, appearing in the camera from time to time. All right, you seem to have a guest. We'll talk when you're free. Little Larissa, don't pull my hair. Okay. Qin Zhao nodded and hung up. After Fei Lai hung up, she angrily slapped little Larissa's short hands. Don't pull Mommy's hair, Mommy just did it. Just then, the butler system's voice sounded. Miss Fei Lai, there's an unfamiliar visitor outside. According to the profile scan, the visitor lives at Mountain Town number 559. His name is Clive, and he's a youth teacher. Fei Lai was a bit surprised, but as a neighbor, she still asked the butler system to unlock the door. At the same time, she stood up to greet her neighbor. Hello, sir. Hello, ma'am, I'm Cliff. Cliff said. Please forgive my sudden visit. I used to be Dee Dee's teacher. I heard that Dee Dee was adopted by you and your husband, so I came to see Dee Dee. If it's convenient, can you let me see Dee Dee's current situation? Mr. Cliff, thank you for taking care of Dee Dee. Feilai smiled. Please come in and take a seat. Feilai could feel Cliff's kindness. Cliff knew that Feilai was rich, but he was still shocked when he entered the manor. However, he was still shocked when he entered the manor. The living room was also technologically and luxuriously decorated. The inside of the manor was like a huge park. As the saying goes, the life of the rich is beyond the imagination of the poor. Through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, he could see a few children playing outside. It was obvious that the atmosphere of the family was quite good. Originally, Cliff had come to see if Didi would be treated unfairly in the new family. Now he had more or less given up on the idea. A while later, Feilai called Didi down. Cliff also felt completely relieved after seeing Didira's spirit and appearance. It seemed that she was doing well here. Hello, Mr. Cliff. Hi, Didi. Cliff nodded with a smile. After helping them get 2 drinks, Feilai went out to the yard. After catching up with Didi for a while, Cliff got a general idea of Didi's current situation. He learned that Didi and her siblings had all become orphans due to an accident in the family. After that, they had all been adopted. This was also the conclusion of the discussion between Qinzhao, Feilai, and the children. It was just that the supernatural part was slightly hidden. By the way, Mr. Chen isn't home? Uncle has a job overseas. He might be back in a few days. I see. Cliff nodded. Can Miss Feilai take care of you all by herself? If necessary, I can ask Amber to come and take care of you and your siblings. Thank you, but it's fine. I can take care of myself and my siblings for Aunt Feilai. Also, Uncle's assistant, Miss Portia, isn't here today. She usually comes to help. Well, alright then. If you need anything, you can contact me. Do you have my contact number? Yes, thank you, Mr. Cliff. Okay, I won't disturb you anymore. If you're free, you can visit Amber at my place. She misses you too. Auntie Feilai is busy arranging schools for us, so she's not free right now. After this, I'll visit you and Auntie Amber. Okay. Say goodbye to Feilai for me. Okay. After Cliff left, Feilai came in. Didi, how was your chat? Not bad, but Mr. Cliff seems much older than last time I saw him. Of course. After all, you haven't seen each other for a few years. Not that long. Last time, when Uncle and I went to the supermarket in town to buy Christmas presents, we saw him. It's so weird. It's been less than a month. Why do I feel like he's aged 10 years? Feilai thought about it. Cliff really did seem a bit haggard. Is he sick? I'm not sure, Auntie Feilai. I want to visit Mr. Cliff and his wife, Auntie Amber, sometime. Is that okay? Of course, but you'd better prepare a gift. I'll go with you to the supermarket tomorrow. Chapter 2298. The next day, Didira and Feilai went to the supermarket to buy 2 gifts. One was a tie for Clive, and the other was a scarf for Ampa. Let's go here. Feilai and Didira found Clive's house. A row of white fences surrounded the yard. Inside was a white 2-story house. Didira pressed the doorbell. Just then, the curtains in the house opened, and someone peeked inside. Then, a woman ran out from the inside. You're Didira? Ampa quickly recognized Didira. Ms. Ampa, I'm Didira. I'm glad you still recognize me. I didn't expect you to be so old. Sorry, who's this? This is Auntie Feilai. Of course, she's my adoptive mother in name, Didira said with a smile. Hello, Ms. Feilai. I'm Ampa. Hello, Ms. Ampa. Ms. Ampa, don't you know that we live in Mountain Town too? Didira realized that Ampa was very surprised to see her. Didn't Mr. Clive tell you? He went to see me yesterday. Huh? Does Clive know? Never mind. Maybe Mr. Clive was too busy and didn't tell you about it. Feilai smiled and patted Didira's back. Ms. Ampa, Auntie Feilai and I are giving this to you and Mr. Clive. Ampa accepted the gift, looking a bit flustered and embarrassed. Sorry, the house is a bit messy. I'm afraid it's not convenient for you to come in. It's okay. We're just passing by and came to see you, Didira said considerately. Clive is in school right now and isn't home today. If it's okay, can you come this weekend? Or Clive and I can go over. Ampa looked at Didira nervously. She liked children and had a deep impression of Didira. For her, for every child she liked, she would fantasize about how great it would be if the child was hers. So Ampa was very happy that Didira came to see her. But there were some things in the house that she couldn't let them see. So Ampa was both happy and troubled. Of course, Phalai agreed for Didira. After all, Amber and Clive were not bad people. Although he didn't have much contact with them, he could tell that they weren't bad people. After exchanging contact information, Phalai left with Didira. Ampa stood in front of the door and watched Phalai and Didila's car drive away before he hurried back into the house. When Ampa returned to the room, he saw a large pot emitting green gas. Not bad, not bad. Ampa once again threw himself into the work of making magic potions. It was the same beach and the same umbrella. Chun and the 23rd generation Blood Mary sat under the parasol and watched the tide come and go. The 23rd Blood Mary was looking for Chun because she wanted to find out how Chun had gone through the heavenly tribulation. Even though Chin had already told Baifla and Zhang Tianyi about it, Chin was still worried about Zhang Tianyi. However, there were some details that Mary still wanted to ask Chin personally. She wasn't sure if she would be able to use these experiences in this life. However, to her, the heavenly tribulation that Chin had experienced was definitely a priceless treasure. Once she faced the same situation in the future, her chances of survival would greatly increase. Even if she couldn't use it herself, she could compile Chen's experience into a book and leave it for future generations to use. Regardless of the time, these contents would always play a role. I didn't expect you to be the first to break through, the 23rd generation Blood Mary said emotionally. The 23rd generation Blood Mary said emotionally. I thought it would be Zhang Tianyi, or at least me. I didn't break through. I'm still in the Shangqing state. At least that's what old Zhang said. We're both in the Shangqing state, but we're not on the same level. In terms of combat power, I'm indeed slightly higher, but there's no qualitative difference between us. It's like the difference between the ultimate transformation state and the Shangqing state. Taking the upper clarity realm as an example, the upper clarity realm is divided into 4 small realms: spiritual formation, embryonic breathing, sitting death, and spiritual solitude. You, Celestial Master Zhang, me, and Baifla are in the 4 small realms. You are in the spiritual solitude realm, Celestial Master Zhang is in the sitting death realm, I am in the embryonic breathing realm, and Baifla is in the spiritual formation realm. The first 3 small realms can actually be considered as the same level. Although there is a difference in our combat power, there is no difference in essence. Spiritual solitude realm is the most special level. It is completely different from the previous 3 small realms. What's different? I don't know, but I can feel that you're different. It's not that you're stronger or that you're more powerful. It's purely my personal perception. Old John said that my cultivation is unprecedented, but since the 4 states of the Shangqing state have been clearly divided since ancient times, someone must have reached it in ancient times. Maybe some of the mythical figures in our legends reached my state. Celestial Master Zhang said that you're the number 1 person in all of history. There's no doubt about that. However, he was talking about the Near Ancient Era. The Near Ancient Era is divided into 3,000 years. This is also publicly acknowledged in the spirit world, Blood Mary said. Before the modern times, there's also the ancient times, the primeval times, and the primeval times. There shouldn't be anyone in the ancient times who reached your current state. In the ancient times and the primeval times, some of the mythical figures that existed and have been passed down to this day are actually not human. Cultivation methods have been passed down, and they're constantly being perfected and innovated. But are the ancient cultivators stronger than the ones today? Is it because of the spiritual chi tide? That's one thing, but it's not absolute. Blood Mary said. The factors of the environment and resources are all factors that affect the strength of the cultivators in that era. In times of chaos, it's very easy for the strong to be born. In the words of your Huaxia people, heroes are created by the times. Then could it be that there are actually people who are stronger than me, or even people who are at a higher level than me, but they've been hiding and keeping a low profile since ancient times? Of course it's possible. At your level, the laws and rules of the world have little effect on you. So there are indeed people who want to hide their whereabouts. Maybe there are people who are as strong as you among them. Chapter 2299. West led the group to Qin Zhao's hotel room and knocked on the door. Moore's hand was in a cast and bandage. The others were more or less injured too. Qin Zhao had already asked the hotel staff to prepare a table full of sumptuous dishes. He looked up at the group. Sit down. The group didn't stand on ceremony. They sat down in a circle. Those who wanted to eat, those who wanted to drink, drank. How's your situation? Chen Zhao asked casually. The others were all busy eating. Only West said, It's not good. Huh? Why not? After participating in the Battle of Holy Glory this time, we discovered that our team's strength is probably at the second level of all the participating teams. Apart from the top few teams, we can basically deal with most of the teams, but apart from fighting, we're practically useless. Even in battle, our hands and feet are tied. We might not even be able to use 60% of our strength. Do you know the problem? President, our problem is you. Me? Yes, you. West nodded. You've really influenced us too much. In the words of the Chinese, success was because of Xiaohe, and failure was also because of Xiaohe. Qin Zhao had succeeded the supernatural organization and made it from a nameless and even marginalized supernatural organization to the top supernatural organization in North America. In North America, there were basically no other organizations that could fight against the supernatural organization. But Qin Zhao's influence on the organization was too great. Everyone was used to fighting alongside Qin Zhao. This also restricted the organization. If the battlefield was only in North America, it wouldn't matter if Qin Zhao joined the battlefield or not. However, if it was a higher level battlefield or arena, with a higher level opponent, then it would be a different story. Their habits would become their Achilles heel. Qin Zhao would always choose the strongest enemy. They would never have to worry about whether Qin Zhao could defeat the enemy. They were even worried that Qin Zhao's opponent would lose too quickly and Qin Zhao would join their battle. But when Qin Zhao wasn't by their side, everything was messed up. Qin Zhao and West communicated. Qin Zhao roughly understood the problem West was talking about. Actually, everyone had already felt it in the past. However, at that time, no one had truly realized the severity of the situation. It wasn't until this moment that they felt it most directly. In the past, when West was leading the team, he kept emphasizing that he didn't want Qin Zhao to interfere. But they also knew that Qin Zhao could intervene at any time. But it was different this time. The rules restricted Qin Zhao and also restricted them. In a trial of this scale, the help Qin Zhao could provide them was very limited. Even if Qin Zhao had a way for them to cheat, he wouldn't do it. It wasn't because Qin Zhao was fair and just, but because it was meaningless. What they wanted was neither a title nor a reward. What they needed was a trial to prove themselves. President, do you know about the anomaly in the wasteland market? Yesterday's terrifying earthquake in the desolate market. If I say I don't know, would you believe me? That super earthquake had something to do with you. Of course, West didn't believe it. Also, from Qin Zhao's expression, the earthquake wasn't just related to him. It was even possible that Qin Zhao was the main cause of this disaster. Qin Zhao ignored West's question. Helios, if I give you a god's body, can you make it into a zombie puppet? Everyone turned to look at Qin Zhao. Guild leader, did you kill another god? No. Qin Zhao shook his head and told them what he'd experienced in the desolate market. Everyone listened with their mouths agape. They'd thought that they'd already experienced many ups and downs in the desolate market trial. But after hearing Qin Zhao's words, they didn't know what to say anymore. was what they'd done at trial. Compared to Qin Zhao, they felt like they were playing house. I killed that red demon and the god's body became my spoils of war. President, let me see it. Heliais was very interested in the god's body. Ruan, go set up a magic seal to seal the aura, West said. Ruan nodded. He also wanted to see the god's body first. He even wanted to get some materials from God's body. But he still went to set up the magic seal obediently. A while later, Qin Zhao took out the god's body. Even though it was a corpse, the majestic power it contained made everyone's heart palpitate. Qin Zhao looked up at Heliais. What do you think? Can I? If you can, it's yours. Heliais shook her head regretfully. If she could, she'd be happy to make a god's body into her puppet. But she didn't have enough power. President, I can't do it. Can't do it? Is it because you don't have enough magic? Or do you need a lot of time? Qin Zhao asked. Neither. It's the divinity in the god's body. As long as it exists, it can't fall or be corroded by my death magic. Is there a way to get rid of the divinity? President, let's not talk about whether there's a way to get rid of the divinity. Even if there's a way, the body's value will be greatly reduced, Ruan said. Ruan Faxiban said. The reason why this corpse is the body of God is that it contains divinity. Without this divinity, it is just a relatively strong corpse. So it's useless? Qin Zhao asked, disappointed. President, give me the corpse. Ruan Faxi was so excited that he almost lost control. A god's body. It was even rarer than a dragon. No, to him, dragons weren't rare at all. The dragon balls in the supernatural organization's warehouse were enough for them to play with. Even if they wanted to drink dragon bone soup every day, it wouldn't be a problem. But a god's body was different. After all, even if Qin Zhao killed a god, there were no gods in the world for him to kill. It wasn't the era of gods anymore. That was why this god's body was so precious. What a waste, West said. He didn't know what this god's body could be used for. West wasn't worried about blaspheming gods. He didn't fear gods at all. But if it was used by Ruan Faxban for all kinds of experiments, or even cut into pieces by him, it was simply a blasphemy against a rare treasure. Chapter 2300. No, I'm not going to put this body in a container. I've heard that there are legends about God's blood all over the world. In some legends, people who drink God's blood will have divine power. In some legends, God's blood can make people immortal. Therefore, I want to extract something valuable from God's blood. Ruan Faxi didn't hide his intentions. He said it openly. He knew that there was no point in lying to Qin Zhao and West. He might even lose his chance completely. Furthermore, if he had obtained the body of this god through deceit, he would not have been able to do so. What if Qin Zhao found out? Fight Qin Zhao head on. Stop joking. Ruan Faxi knew very well that his head would be twisted off and kicked like a ball. After that, he might be resurrected by Heliais. Of course, it wouldn't be a normal resurrection. There's very little god's blood in this god's body. It's pitifully little. The body looked like a normal person's. Its skin was firm and shiny. In reality, it was just a dried corpse. There was probably only a few mouthfuls of saliva left in its body. President, science is always accompanied by certain risks, but if we aren't willing to take on even this little risk, science will never progress. Ruan Faxi said righteously. We're not talking about science now. We're talking about theology and alchemy. It's anti-science. That's true, but the logic is the same, right? Ruan Faxi wasn't a person who gave up easily. Plus, if he tried hard, he wouldn't lose anything whether he succeeded or not. Investments need returns. If you can control this god's body and make use of it, I don't mind giving it to you, because your increased combat power also belongs to the supernatural organization. But if you experiment with it, it's fine if you succeed, but if you fail, you won't even get your money back. President, even if you're a financial man, investing is risky. That's why I never invest in finance. Ruan Faxi didn't even have the chance to say the lines he'd prepared. But people should be adventurous, right? I like to live a stable life. West glanced at Ruan Faxben and said, Ruan, you're using the god's blood for an experiment. You should at least explain what you can research and what we can obtain. After all, there are probably only a few portions of the god's blood in the world. You're just saying that you can refine something valuable. Isn't that a little too disrespectful? To put it bluntly, both Qin Zhao and the supernatural organization were like investors. On the other hand, Ruan was more like a fanatical scientist. Businessmen pursued profits, while scientists pursued discoveries. They weren't on the same channel at all. West was actually speaking up for Ruan Faxben. Although Ruan Faxi was a fanatical alchemist, he wasn't an idiot. He understood the meaning behind West's words. President, I think the most basic research is enough to create a potion that can increase the power of the supernatural organization. I'm confident about that, but if we want to study the effects of the god's blood, we'll need some formulas. What kind of formula? I'm not sure, Ruan Faxben said. There are related legends all over the world, Ruan Faxben said. At the same time, there are a few recipes that use divine blood as the main ingredient. If I can find and obtain those recipes, it will be of great help to my research. Qin Zhao and West glanced at each other. West nodded slightly and said, President, how about this? We'll temporarily increase the power of all the members of the supernatural organization as Ruan's minimum requirement. The time limit is 1 year. Also, we'll help him search for related formulas around the world so he can study the god's blood further. Sure, but for now, we'll focus on the god's blood. I still hope to keep the god's body intact. If anyone can use the god's body to increase their power in the future, the god's body will belong to them. Actually, Qin Zhao was more inclined to give the god's body to Helith. If she could use it, she'd benefit the most directly. But Helith said that she couldn't use it, so Qin Zhao couldn't do anything. Just then, the demon knife that Dong Yetianxi had placed beside his chair suddenly emitted a cloud of smoke that enveloped him. White-faced Ghost controlled Dong Yetianxi's body. Dong Yetianxi turned into a warrior. President. White Mask gave Qin Zhao a 90-degree bow respectfully. Of course, White-faced Ghost wasn't here to cause trouble. Causing trouble in front of Qin Zhao and the 10 members of the supernatural organization was asking for trouble. What is it? President, I hope that I can slash this body. Everyone rolled their eyes. Qin Zhao said that he wanted to keep the god's body intact. White-faced Ghost ran out and said that he wanted to cut him once. Why? I want to obtain more power, White-faced Ghost said righteously. I also want to serve the president and the supernatural organization better. You only need to cut this body once? Yes, I am a demon blade. To me, I can only slash humans and monsters. However, if I can slash a god, I will be able to rise to a higher level. I will become a demon blade that can slash gods. Qin Zhao raised an eyebrow. There's such a thing? Yes, so please allow my request, Lord President. Qin Zhao didn't agree to White-faced Ghost's request immediately. Instead, he asked Dong Yetianxi, Dong Yetianxi, can you sense his intentions? Dong Yetianxi had been possessed by White-faced Ghosts, but he still maintained his consciousness. Dong Yetianxi's appearance returned to normal. President, I can feel Demon Knife's desire and anticipation. For now, he's loyal to you. To Demon Knife, there was no such thing as eternal loyalty. Once a demon knife was so powerful that its master couldn't control it, it would either kill its master or change its master. This was why Dong Yetianxi said that demon knife was temporarily loyal to Qin Zhao. If the white-faced ghost reaches the level of God's Slayer, can you control him? As long as the president is here, he'll never dare to disobey me. What's your intention? After all, Dong Yetianxi was the one who used white-faced ghost the most, so Qin Zhao was more willing to listen to his suggestions. President, I hope you can agree to Demon Knife's request. If he dares to disobey you one day, I'll personally bury him. Chapter 2301. Dong Tianxi wasn't just a warrior. He was also a blacksmith and a swordsmith. He didn't just know swordsmanship. He also knew the knife burial spell. This was a spell that every swordsmith in Japan knew. From the first day the demon blade appeared, the knife burial spell was born. The knife burial spell was a spell that swordsmiths used to deal with demon blades. The first swordsmith forged the first demon blade. It was a bad omen and sealed the blade's soul. The demon blade wasn't willing to be sealed, so it killed its master and killed the swordsmith. In the end, the demon blade fell into eternal silence. The swordsmith also died to the demon blade he had forged. The swordsmith's name was White Cloak Workshop. The demon blade was called Not Evil. Of course, usually, the demon blade would inherit the swordsmith's surname. This was why the first demon blade was called White Cloak Not Evil. This legend was very widespread in Japan. For every swordsmith, it was like group training. As soon as the demon blade appeared, it would be sealed and its soul would be buried. But now, swordsmiths didn't believe in this anymore. In fact, most swordsmiths wanted to forge a demon blade to prove their ability. Dong Tianxi spoke up for White Mask. It was because the stronger White Mask was, the stronger he was. In the supernatural organization, which was getting stronger by the day, his power was no longer on the list. Apart from Qin Zhao, the top echelons like Gaia, Helis, and Norma couldn't keep up either. Originally, he was a core force in the second echelon. But the people chasing after him gave him more and more pressure. He might even fall to the third echelon. This gave him a lot of pressure. Actually, Chen Zhao and the others didn't look down on Dong Tianxi because of this. After all, Qin Zhao had recruited him because of his forging skills, not his combat ability. Moreover, Dong Tianxi's forging skills were very useful in the supernatural organization. Do I just need to cut the body? Chen Zhao asked. No. Actually, the process is a bit complicated. How complicated? There's a lot of preparation work, Dong Tianxi said. We can't perform the god-slaying ritual here. Is it a ritual? Chen Zhao was surprised. Yes, of course. If he was a living god, there would be no need to go through so much trouble. Just slash him once. But he's just a corpse, so a certain amount of preparation is needed. Okay, we'll talk about it when we get back. Chen Zhao nodded. Guild leader, we would like to inquire about the contents of the next trial so that we can prepare ourselves. Not yet, Chen Zhao said. I'll go ask later. After everyone had eaten and drunk their fill, they stood up and bade farewell. As soon as West and the others left, Baifla came to Qin Zhao's room. Qin Zhao didn't know how he got in. Before the door even opened, he had appeared in the room out of nowhere. I know what the next trial is about, Baifla said. Qin Zhao glanced at Baifla. What do you want to tell me? I don't need anything. What you've communicated with me before is already enough. This time, Baifla was very straightforward. Due to the disaster caused by your battle with the Red Devil, nearly 200 spiritualists lost their lives. Therefore, the trial this time will be more focused on safety. So many people died? That disaster is far more serious than you can imagine, Baifla said. Right now, Celestial Master Zhang, the 23rd Blood Mary, and Wendy are constantly comforting the elders and families of those who have died because of this matter. Therefore, the third trial has to be a safer and more reliable one. What's the third trial? Wanda also opened up an alternate dimension. The scale of this alternate dimension isn't as large as the Wasteland Market, but it's more lively than the Wasteland Market. It's called the Four Seasons Palace, and the third trial will be held there. The content of the trial is to defeat Wendy, 23rd Blood Mary, and Celestial Master Zhang's clone respectively. What kind of clone? Qin Zhao asked, surprised. Zhang Tianyi had learned the clone spell from him. Qin Zhao didn't know Wendy and hadn't interacted with him before, so he didn't know how strong he was. However, he didn't know what Blood Mary's clone spell was like. But with their abilities, no matter how weak their clones were, they wouldn't be too weak. Was it possible to defeat 3 of their clones? Actually, they're not real clones. They're 3 puppets with their magic power and are completely controlled by the 3 of them. In terms of magic power alone, the 3 puppets are above average, but they're very special. As long as it's a spell that the 3 controllers can use, they can use it too. That's why they're called clones. In other words, they have their consciousness and magic, but their magic power is at the same level as the participants, right? You can say that, but more accurately, their magic power is lower than the participants. Even so, the Holy Glory participants probably can't beat them, right? For example, Old Man Zhang Tianyi. Just give him a little bit of magic power, and he might be able to kill his opponent directly. Don't underestimate the participants. There are many geniuses among them. They're not as weak as you think. This has nothing to do with underestimating them. It's the truth. If I don't say it, will they really beat Zhang Tianyi? Even if it's his clone. They don't necessarily need to beat Celestial Master Zhang, Bifla said. In fact, as long as they defeat Wendy's clone puppet, they can win the ticket to the next round. As for the 23rd generation Blood Mary and Celestial Master Zhang's clone puppet, the more outstanding their performance, the greater the advantage they'll get. To put it bluntly, this trial is actually to eliminate the bad seeds and select the best participants for the next trial. How strong is Wendy? Top-level magic power, but not yet at the Shangqing realm. He should be considered a second-level powerhouse. But his strongest point is his alchemy magic. His clone puppet can also use alchemy? Of course. Those 3 clones were all made by him. They were prepared for this trial. Do you think he didn't consider this problem? This looks like a guarding ring. If you pass one, you can go to the next. This is not an arena. The final event of the Holy Glory battle is an arena. It's been like this in previous years. There's really an arena? Of course, and the final arena is a one-on-one battle. All the remaining members of the team will be reshuffled and randomly ranked. Then, they will compete in an elimination arena. Chapter 2302. On the weekend, Feilai brought the kids to Clive's house. Feilai realized that Clive and Ampa had many kids too. Mr. Clive, are they your kids? Feilai asked, confused. She remembered that Clive had said that he and his wife couldn't have children. They're Ampa's and my adopted children, Clive said. Ampa really likes kids, but she'll never have them, so she can only adopt them. Clive looked at his kids playing with Feilai's kids. He liked them too, but he was more rational than his wife. Ampa still couldn't accept reality. Clive knew very well that they would never have children. Clive looked at Feilai. What about you? Why did you adopt so many kids? They're related to my husband. They're not complete strangers, Feilai said. Instead of sending them to an orphanage, it's better for us to take care of them. Ampa was busy giving candy and snacks to the kids. Since Ampa had planned for today's gathering, he was well prepared. At least the kids had enough food. Clive, where are you working now? Feilai remembered that Ampa had said last time that Clive was in school. He should be a teacher there. I'm a physics teacher at Mountain Town Middle School, Clive said. Oh, I remember Didala saying that you're preparing the enrollment procedures for the kids, right? Didala should be going to middle school, right? Yes. Feilai and Qin Zhao were considering whether to arrange a noble school or a regular school for the kids. Of course, the so-called noble school didn't mean that only nobles could attend. Real noble schools focused on elite education. But if they sent the kids to a noble school, they would lose the fun of regular kids. If it was a regular school, it would definitely be a school in Mountain Town. The middle schools and elementary schools in Mountain Town were average. The education level and teachers were below average. Whether it was a noble school or an ordinary school, it could be said that there were pros and cons. This was why Qin Zhao and Feilai were hesitant. The way of thinking and the world view of the children raised in these 2 schools was as different as heaven and earth. Feilai shared what was bothering her with Clive. Miss Feilai, it depends on what you expect of them, Cliff said. I used to be a teacher in a noble school for 3 years. I know the environment and teaching methods of a noble school. To be honest, most children, or even all children, should not receive that kind of education. There's something wrong with the education of the noble schools? The problem is very big, Cliff said. There was once a teacher who gave his students an assignment to cheat their parents of $100, no matter the means. This kind of education has already violated the law, right? Yes, that's true. But there are about 2,000 elite schools in the United States, and all of them use this kind of education method. Extreme education methods. In the future, most of the children who graduate from these schools will be able to get into famous universities or get a good job, but they will lose their bottom line. Miss Phelan, you want the children to have a complete childhood and have their own social life, but social life in a noble school is more about networking, not childhood friendships. You are right. Phelan nodded. At this time, Didi's voice came from the courtyard. Little Jerlin, you can't touch that. Ampa saw little Jerlin and Didi in the courtyard. Then he saw that Jerlin was holding a plant that looked like weeds in her hand, and his expression immediately changed. Baby, throw this away. Ampa rushed over in a hurry. It was a magic plant she had planted in the courtyard. This magic plant had a very strong curse effect. But Jerlin did not care and directly stuffed the magic plant into her mouth. This time, everyone was anxious. Didi picked up Jerlin anxiously and pinched her chin. Spit it out. Don't. Little Jerlin pushed Didira's palm away. She did not care and swallowed it. Jerlin was used to it at home. She had almost peeled off a layer of grass. She dared to stuff plants and bugs into her mouth. Most of the time, no one cared about her. After all, as long as it was harmless, eating it would not be a big problem. Amber and Clive also saw little Jerlin swallow the magic plant. They were a little flustered. Miss Phelan, something's wrong. The plant Jerlin ate is poisonous. Carrying Jerlin, Didi came to Phelan anxiously. Phelan's expression also became panicked. Poisonous? Deadly poison? It's very troublesome, Didi said with a serious expression. At this time, Ampa rummaged in the drawer and found a bottle of medicine. Give Jerlin this. It can neutralize the plant's poison. This is... Of course, Phelan could not accept this medicine of unknown origin. I'll take my daughter to the hospital. Miss Ampa, Mr. Cliff, I'm sorry, but we need to go. Ampa hesitated for a moment, and still stuffed the medicine into Phelan's hands. If it doesn't work after going to the hospital, or if Jerlin has epileptic symptoms, use this. Phelan thought for a moment and still accepted the medicine. Phelan carried Jerlin into the car, while Didi was responsible for taking the other children away. Phelan had only driven a short distance with Jerlin when she received Didira's call. Miss Phelan, that medicine should be the antidote. Antidote? Little Jerlin ate a void spirit herb, a magical plant. The void spirit herb can force a person's soul out of their body. You're saying that Jerlin ate a magic plant? Yes, Didi replied over the phone. And I can feel that the potion Lady Ampa just gave you should be a magic potion. Are they spiritualists too? I'm not sure. I didn't know that they were spiritualists before. They've never shown it to me. Should I tell your uncle? Phelan asked. It's best. I don't think Miss Ampa and Mr. Cliff have any bad intentions, but Jerlin ate their things by mistake, so I still need to let him know. That's true. Phelan accepted Didi's suggestion. After all, she did not know magic at all. Didi was also not familiar with other systems of magic. So, she should let Qinzhao know. Divine King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2303. What? Jerlin was poisoned? Qinzhao jumped up. How is she now? I'll go back now. Baifla glanced at Qinzhao. The two of them had teamed up to roam the streets of Istanbul again. Something happened at home, Qinzhao said immediately. I have to go back. I've been a professional doctor for a long time, Baifla said. I've studied ancient and modern medicine. Do you need me to go with you? Qin Zhao thought about it. He was a doctor too. But he didn't know what was going on with Jerlin, so he decided to take Bifla with him. Perhaps Jerlin's problem was very troublesome. Perhaps he couldn't solve it, but Bifla could. Sure, I'll take you. You're not planning to fly back to LA, are you? Bifla looked at Qin Zhao in surprise. What? Is it okay? You can fly at high speed for a long time? Can you fly faster than a plane? Yes. For us, there's no upper limit to magic power. Why not? Okay, I haven't tried long-distance flying before. Plus, my flying speed hasn't been that high. Then I'll let you experience extreme flying speed. How about that? Qin Zhao grinned. Sure. I'd like to see how fast you can take me. Qin Zhao grabbed Bifla. Bifla was also ready in an instant. Instantly, Bifla felt a huge pressure pressing down on him. Qin Zhao had already turned into a beam of light. He dragged Bifla into the sky. Right now, in Istanbul at night, one could clearly see a beam of light flying up from below. It passed through the night and disappeared into the distance. Fast, too fast. Even Bifla felt the pressure. Bifla watched the disappearing lights of the city fly away. In just a few seconds, Qin Zhao and Bifla were already on the sea. The direct distance from Istanbul to LA was about 11,000 kilometers. They had to pass through the Black Sea and then the Tyrrhenian Sea. Then they had to pass through the Strait of Gibraltar and enter the North Atlantic. To avoid being detected by high-altitude satellites, Qin Zhao flew at a low altitude, close to sea level. Bifla could only use his senses to determine his current direction. He couldn't even open his eyes. About 2 or 3 minutes later, Bifla clearly felt his speed decrease. Bifla opened its eyes and found an unfamiliar city in front of it. That is, LA, Qin Zhao said. What's your flying speed? I haven't calculated it, but it should be over Mach 180. Bifla sucked in a breath of cold air. He himself was not proficient in flying in the first place. His own speed was about 100 kilometers per hour. However, Qin Zhao had crossed the Pacific Ocean in less than 2 minutes. This speed was already explosive. This is the speed of my brand new form after transcending the calamity. It wasn't this fast before. I tested my speed with a professional speed measuring device before, and it's about Mach 45. Bifla was once again astonished. Even the speed from before was beyond his reach. Qin Zhao's speed just now had probably reached dozens of kilometers per second. That was almost 1,000 times faster than his flying speed. When he reached the sea outside Los Angeles, he slowed down, but he was still shockingly fast. A moment later, they landed outside Mirror Lake Manor. Just then, Fei Lai rushed out of the house. Chen, you're back so soon? Fei Lai was surprised too. She thought that no matter how fast Qin Zhao was, he would need a few hours to get back. After all, she had no idea how fast Qin Zhao was. Plus, Qin Zhao was far away in Istanbul. Yes, Fei Lai, this is Bifla, my friend. Hello, madam. Bifla nodded slightly. Hello? How's little Jerlin? Fei Lai told Qin Zhao about the situation. Jerlin doesn't seem to have any symptoms. She's still jumping around. Qin Zhao and Bifla entered the manor. Jerlin was still running around and playing around. Your daughter is very active, Bifla said meaningfully. Did she take stimulants? This joke isn't funny at all. Qin Zhao rolled his eyes. Wow. Dad. Seeing Qin Zhao return, Jerlin pounced on his leg excitedly and hugged him. Qin Zhao held Jerlin in his arms. Darling, I heard that you're eating random food again. Humph. It doesn't taste good at all. Do you usually find good food in the yard? Those who didn't know would think that Qin Zhao abused Jerlin and didn't give her enough to eat, so she had to look for random food in the yard. Jerlin thought back seriously. After a while, she answered, I don't think so. While the father and daughter were talking, Qin Zhao was also secretly checking Jerlin's body. But after a long time, Qin Zhao didn't find anything wrong with Jerlin. Little Jerlin still looked healthy. Qin Zhao glanced at Bifla. Darling, this is Uncle Bifla. Uncle Bifla. Jerlin gave Bifla a bright and sweet smile. Hello, darling. Bifla put on a rare gentle smile and opened his arms. Do you want me to hug you? Jerlin was outgoing and not afraid of strangers at all. Uncle Bifla, hug. Bifla took the opportunity to take Jerlin and check her body at the same time. However, just like Qin Zhao, he couldn't find anything wrong with little Jerlin even after checking for a long time. Do you still have the potion Cliff gave you? Did you give it to Jerlin? No. Fei Lai shook her head. I don't know if it's harmful, so I didn't dare to use it. Fei Lai handed the potion to Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao sniffed it first. It had a faint fragrance, but he didn't find anything wrong with it. Let me see. Bifla took the potion from Qin Zhao. Yes, this is spirit summoning water. It's the antidote to the void spirit grass. There's nothing else. Does Jerlin need the spirit summoning water now? Qin Zhao asked. I'm not sure, Bifla said hesitantly. If a normal person consumes the void spirit grass, their soul will directly leave their body, and they need to be summoned back with the spirit summoning water. However, your daughter doesn't show any symptoms of the void spirit grass. Then is she okay now? I'm not sure. Bifla didn't dare to come to a conclusion. After all, she was Qin Zhao's descendant. He'd never encountered something like this. Who knew if something would happen to Jerlin afterwards? Has she come into contact with other spells? Not yet. Chapter 2304. Not finding a problem didn't mean there was no problem. Especially a child. Qin Zhao's child. So, Qin Zhao couldn't let his guard down. You don't have any ideas? I can find Celestial Master Zhang or 23rd Blood Mary and ask them to check. Qin Zhao thought about it. He didn't have any other ideas now. He could only keep Jerlin by his side. He could go to Istanbul and find Celestial Master Zhang or 23rd Blood Mary and ask them to check. Of course, Qin Zhao didn't have to find a problem with Jerlin. But in his current situation, he wouldn't feel at ease if he didn't find a problem. Fei Lai, I'll take Jerlin to Istanbul. Qin, sorry. I didn't take good care of Jerlin. No one wants this to happen, Qin Zhao said. It's not anyone's fault. If anyone's at fault, it's Jerlin. After giving some instructions to Fei Lai, Qin Zhao hurried to Istanbul with Jerlin. Help me carry Jerlin. Also protect her, Qin Zhao said. When Qin Zhao used energization, he could bring people along, but he couldn't use protective spells. For example, when he brought Bifla to L.A., Bifla had suffered quite a bit on the way. Based on his speed, Jerlin couldn't handle it. Bifla was happy to carry Jerlin. Daddy, fly! Seeing Qin Zhao and Bifla carry her higher and higher, Jerlin screamed in excitement. Jerlin, close your eyes. When you open them again, you'll find yourself in Istanbul, Bifla said gently. Qin Zhao glanced at Bifla. You seem to know how to get along with children. I was once a father too. Qin Zhao didn't continue asking. After all, Bifla was over 400 years old. His child didn't have Bifla's abilities. It was very likely that he'd passed away with time. Therefore, this should be a very sad topic for him. When Bifla carried Jerlin, the control of his arms made him seem more like a father. Qin Zhao didn't slow down because Bifla would protect Jerlin. Jerlin gradually fell asleep in Bifla's arms. She was snoring softly, and seemed to have fallen asleep. Soon, Qin Zhao and Bifla arrived in Istanbul. Back at the hotel, Bifla patted little Jerlin lightly. My dear, it's time to wake up. Bifla did not wake little Jerlin. Qin Zhao took Jerlin. Forget it. Let her sleep. Bifla nodded. I'll go find Celestial Master Zhang and the 23rd Generation Blood Mary. Yes, thank you. After Bifla left, Qin Zhao stayed by Jerlin's side. Jerlin was sound asleep, but after waiting for 2 hours, Qin Zhao felt a little uneasy. Because Jerlin was sleeping too soundly. Usually, a child of little Jerlin's age would throw a tantrum. Sometimes it was too cold or too hot. Or if she had a nightmare, she would cry in her sleep. Both little Jerlin and little Larissa were in the same situation. Most children have this condition, and there was no way to stop it. But little Jerlin was sleeping too soundly today. Chen Zhao walked to Jerlin's side and gently patted her cheek. Jerlin, wake up. It's time for breakfast. If a child didn't have enough sleep, she would cry too. If she had enough sleep, she would wake up quickly if she heard the sound of food in her sleep. However, Chen Zhao called out twice, but little Jerlin was still asleep. She was still snoring softly. Qin Zhao finally confirmed that something was wrong with Jerlin. Qin Zhao immediately picked up the phone. Bifla, where's old Zhang and the 23rd generation Blood Mary? They're busy. I'll have to wait for a while. Bring them here immediately. Jerlin is still sleeping. I can't wake them up no matter how hard I call. Qin Zhao's tone was hurried. How's her breathing? Her heart rate? I've already checked. Her breathing and heart rate are normal. Her temperature is normal, her complexion is normal, and her soul is normal too. It hasn't left her body, but she just can't wake up. Just then, Zhang Tianyi took Bifla's call. Chen Zhao, how's your daughter? I don't know. She just can't wake up. It wouldn't be too big of a problem if it was just eating the void spirit grass by mistake. However, I've heard Bifla's description just now. Your daughter's situation seems to be a little different. Normally, if an ordinary person eats a void spirit grass by mistake, they'll experience symptoms of an out-of-body experience very quickly. Furthermore, your daughter isn't even 2 years old yet, so the symptoms should be more obvious. Zhang Tianyi said hesitantly. Just tell me if you have a solution. Chen Zhao was in a bad mood. I'll go over now, Zhang Tianyi said. A while later, Zhang Tianyi and Bifla arrived at the hotel Chen Zhao was staying at. After arriving at the hotel, the first thing Zhang Tianyi saw was little Jerlin sleeping soundly on the bed. It wasn't his first time seeing her. Your daughter's soul is sleeping, not her body. Zhang Tianyi made his judgment at first glance. The void spirit grass seems to have a special effect in your daughter's body. It didn't make her soul leave her body, but it became a soul hypnosis effect. This is too strange. Normally, in order for a magic plant to have other effects, the plant has to have contact with magic. However, there's no magic in your daughter's body, nor are there any signs of contact with magic. Zhang Tianyi looked at Qin Zhao and asked for confirmation. She really hasn't practiced magic before, right? No. Chen Zhao shook his head. Do you have a solution? There are many ways to awaken the soul, but most of them aren't suitable for your daughter. Most of them aren't suitable. In other words, there's still a small portion of them, right? Right now, I can't even confirm your daughter's symptoms. Do I dare to make a choice? Zhang Tianyi looked at Qin Zhao helplessly. Even if Qin Zhao said that he didn't have to bear any responsibility, Zhang Tianyi didn't know where to start. He really didn't dare to do anything. If he could wake Jerlin up, everything would be fine. If there were any unexpected changes, then the benefactor would immediately become the enemy. When Blood Mary comes, Zhang Tianyi said, let her take a look. Chen Zhao was very unhappy, but he didn't know who he should be angry at. Suppressing his anger, he sat on the sofa quietly. But his expression was enough to explain his current mood. Not long after, the 23rd generation Blood Mary arrived. When he entered, he saw everyone with different expressions. In the end, his gaze landed on little Jerlin. Huh! Chapter 2305. Little Jerlin is in the process of awakening. You guys are the most powerful people in the world. Do you really need me to judge something like this? 23rd looked at everyone in surprise. Awakening? Impossible. There's no sign of magic power on her at all. Zhang Tianyi immediately rejected 23rd's judgment. She's awakened the nirvanic power. Zhang Tianyi frowned. Bifla studied little Jerlin carefully. Chen Zhao was confused. What's the nirvanic power? It's an extremely special magic system. Only witches who awaken this kind of magic talent can learn and use it, 23rd said. Have you guys never heard of it? I've heard of it, but I've never seen it, Zhang Tianyi said. Plus, I don't know what's so special about the nirvanic witches. Of course, I can't judge. So my daughter is awakening? Did something happen? Chen Zhao suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. The night of awakening was extremely dangerous for other people and spiritualists. But it wasn't a problem for Chen Zhao at all. He could even deal with little Larissa's extraordinary third night. He was more than 100 times stronger than before. So, he wasn't worried if he could deal with little Jerlin's night of awakening. There are many special awakenings in history, and they all have a common characteristic. On the night of awakening, the attacks are much scarier than usual. The night of awakening of the Nirvanic Witch is also one of the special awakenings. It's called the scariest night of awakening. 23rd looked at Qin Zhao. The night of awakening of the Nirvanic Witch is also called the Nirvanic Night. This might be the cruelest battle in your life. Actually, there are always 1 or 2 Nirvanic Witches in every era, but only 3 have passed the Nirvanic Night and survived. The other 2 aren't famous. They're powerful, but they haven't become famous. However, the most ancient Nirvanic Witch has been heard of in the spiritual world. Her name is Lilith. How strong will the Nirvanic Night be? Chen Zhao asked. Tell me everything. Chen Zhao was confident in his abilities. The 23rd generation also knew his own strength. But she still used such a cautious tone to warn him. This meant that the Nirvana Night was not as simple as he had imagined. The Nirvana Night, which awakens on the first night, is 100 times more terrifying than the awakening on the third night. Those 2 unknown Nirvana witches are the first night, and it is said that Lilith is the second night. Lilith is known as the evilest witch, not because she bewitched Cain to kill people in the Bible, but because she released the demons. The demons were released by her into the human world, and it was also because of her that Europe's Dark Age began. I heard that the witch Lilith seems to be the ancestor of the vampires. There are many legends about Lilith the witch, and there are also legends about her being a vampire. All these indicate the Europeans' hatred for Lilith. What happened to her? A crusade? Or was it sealed? Disappeared. The 23rd Blood Mary said. Blood Mary, the 23rd generation said. The mortal armies of that era were nothing but ants to her, and the church was still very weak back then. They didn't even have the right to face her, let alone attack her. The most powerful religions of that era were the Druids and Shamans, as well as some other random religions. The Druids and Shamans tried to attack Lilith many times, but they all failed. Even the church was able to develop and grow stronger because the Shamans tried to attack Lilith many times, which angered Lilith, and she attacked the headquarters of the Shamans. At that time, the upper echelons of the Shamans suffered heavy losses, and the inheritance of advanced shaman magic was almost cut off. A large part of the shaman's sphere of influence at that time overlapped with the current sphere of influence of the church. After that battle, the shamans were almost wiped out, and the church replaced them. The 23rd generation Blood Mary paused for a moment before continuing. However, Lilith disappeared completely at some point in time. There was no information about a certain battle, nor was there any crusade. She just disappeared without a trace. Maybe she got tired of the conflict and went into seclusion. That woman was a terrifying existence that tried to turn the human world into hell. How could she get tired of conflict? Zhang Tianyi said. The Western magic system was learned from demons, and she was the first person to summon demons to the human world. So, it shouldn't be a problem to say that she's the founder of ancient magic. I don't want to admit it, but she started the Dark Ages of Europe and the modern history of magic in Europe. The 30 years that she existed was also the period when magic developed the fastest. Magic in that era developed in an explosive way, and almost all the embryonic forms of modern magic appeared in that era. Chen Zhao thought for a moment and said, You guys seem to be talking about Lilith, but she doesn't seem to have anything to do with my daughter's silent night. It was supposed to be unrelated, but in the few notes, or manuscripts left by the two Annihilation Witches after Lilith, it was recorded that they had met Lilith on the night of silent destruction. Seen her? Qin Zhao frowned. What do you mean by seen her? Literally, Blood Mary said. The 23rd generation Blood Mary said. Their notes didn't mention much about this. They only mentioned that they had met Lilith in the silent night. However, they didn't mention whether the so-called meeting was for a battle or some other purpose. The 3 Nirvana witches before your daughter lived in different eras. Let's talk about how the first Nirvana witch, or even the first witch, managed to live for so long, yet she showed up in the night of silence after the other 2 Nirvana witches. I'm afraid it wasn't because she wanted to see her descendant, so I think it's highly possible that she's up to no good. If you're prepared to help your daughter survive the night of silence, you have to be prepared to fight the first Nirvana witch, said Zhang Tianyi. Qin Zhao then looked at Blood Mary. What's the special characteristic of the so-called Nirvana spell? And how powerful is that demoness? Chapter 2306. The 23rd Blood Mary shook her head. There are no accurate records of Lilith's level. All the records of her battles are described as unbelievably powerful. Qin Zhao was the strongest person in history that Zhang Tianyi had acknowledged. Lilith was also the beginning of Western magic. It seemed like there would be an unavoidable battle. The 23rd Blood Mary could not provide Qin Zhao with more information. Do you need us to stay and help? Baifla asked. No, I can handle it. Qin Zhao shook his head. Qin Zhao, I'll arrange for your daughter's night of Nirvana to be in the desolate bazaar, because I'm not sure how big it will be. If it's in the real world, there might be catastrophic consequences, Zhang Tianyi said. If it's in the desolate bazaar, there will also be catastrophic consequences, Qin Zhao said calmly. The desolate bazaar is already in ruins. The next trial won't be in the desolate bazaar either. Also, the mutants and spirits attracted by the night of Nirvana might not be able to enter the desolate bazaar. This will also reduce the danger. All right then. Qin Zhao didn't mind. For little Jerlin, this was also a good choice. The next day Clive and Ampa came to Mirror Lake Manor uneasily. Miss Feilai. Cliff and Ampa had come today mainly to apologize and check on Jerlin's condition. They had given the antidote to Feilai yesterday. However, a normal parent would not casually give an unknown liquid to their child. They were worried that Feilai's overcaution would cause something to happen to Jerlin. That was why they had come today to check on the situation. Mr. Clive, Ms. Ampa, why are you here? Miss Feilai, we're here to see Jerlin and apologize for our mistake. We shouldn't have left such a dangerous thing in the yard. Feilai also wanted to blame them, but she blamed herself more. If not for her mistake, Jerlin would not have eaten the void spirit grass by mistake. No one wanted this to happen, Feilai said. She didn't want to hold anyone responsible for this right now. This kind of thing was meaningless. Now, she only hoped that little Jerlin would be safe. How's little Jerlin? Clive asked. Something happened, Feilai said. My husband sent someone to take little Jerlin abroad for treatment. I heard there are experts in this field abroad. Miss Feilai, my husband studied medicine, Ampa said worriedly. Those plants are also medical, so Clive can treat patients who accidentally ate those plants. The medicine from yesterday can do it. Didn't you give it to Jerlin? She was worried that an ordinary hospital would find it difficult to cure the curse of the void spirit grass, no matter how good the medical conditions were. There's no need. Jerlin's father is also an expert in this field. He also studied medicine. He knows how to help Jerlin recover. But those plants are very rare, and their composition is very complicated. Even if a medical institution were to analyze them, it would take a long time, not to mention the preparation of an antidote, and Clive's antidote has already passed the test. It's safe and reliable, Ampa said hurriedly. Ampa, please believe what I'm feeling right now. I'm worried about my daughter too. We know what's best for little Jerlin. But Ampa still wanted to say something, but Clive stopped him. Miss Phelan, if that's the case, we'll leave first. If you need any help with Jerlin's situation, you can contact us anytime. Okay. Phelan didn't ask them to stay as guests this time. It was impossible to say that she didn't feel a knot in her heart after something like this happened. Both sides had a certain degree of responsibility in this matter. So even if they could reconcile, that was something to worry about in the future. At least for now, both sides still had their concerns. Clive, can you calculate where little Jerlin is now? Ampa asked. I'll try. Clive walked on the road with his eyes closed, his fingers drawing in the air in front of him. After a while, Clive suddenly opened his eyes, surprise on his face. Little Jerlin is actually in Istanbul now. How is that possible? It hasn't even been 18 hours since it happened. LA is at least 10,000 kilometers away from Istanbul. How can she be so far away? Rich people can do it. In the end, the two could only come to this conclusion. Perhaps little Jerlin's parents had chartered a plane for her to go to Istanbul for medical treatment. No matter how good a normal doctor is, they can't cure little Jerlin, Clive said worriedly. Then what do we do now? Although the symptoms of the void spirit grass will make a person's soul leave their body, their bodily functions will be the same as a normal person's. Also, after 7 days, the problem will worsen. The soul might not be able to find its own body and wander. The body will lose consciousness forever and become a vegetable. Ampa was even more worried. Looks like we have to go to Istanbul, Clive said. The longer Jerlin's condition dragged on, the more dangerous it would be. So Clive's decision was very firm. Are the children coming too? Let's not bring them. Let them stay at home, Clive said. A trip to Istanbul wasn't cheap. If so many children went together, their credit cards would be maxed out. After all, it was a normal family. They couldn't be like Phelan's family. In order to send little Jerlin abroad for medical treatment, they chartered a plane. They still had to consider the financial aspect. Also, the children could basically live on their own. Even if there were 1 or 2 little ones, the parents would take care of them. It shouldn't be a problem. Also, they weren't going to play. It was probably just a round trip. The two returned home. After telling the children, they packed their luggage and rushed to the plane. They were in too much of a rush. The tickets they booked were also on the spot. Time was too tight. Thankfully, they arrived before the flight. After boarding the plane in a hurry, they both looked a bit tired. Taking a plane was also a very tiring thing. Even someone at Qinzhao's level would feel tired on a plane, let alone others. After more than 10 hours of sailing, they finally arrived at Istanbul. In their tiredness, they didn't have time to appreciate the scenery along the way. They found a random hotel and checked in. Ampa, go sit over there. I'll finish the paperwork soon. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.